Hey, it is Sunday night and we are live. Today is the 28th of January, and on the panel we have Judith from Israel, artist from England, Denmark, Angel from America, artist from Germany, and our special guest is John Cowie, who's going to talk about pyramids.
Shalom, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Yay. So, what do you want to do, John? Do you just want to start talking about, because you've got a presentation that you want to do, haven't you?
I've got a little presentation which I would like to show you. It's basically on PowerPoint, so it's not going to be death by PowerPoint. It'll only be a few slides. But what I really want to highlight is how really the establishment talk about things like Silbury Hill, the Great Pyramids, Stonehenge, and so on. And basically, the information they provide is really misleading.
Can I just say to you that there are a lot of people going to be maybe watching from around the world. So do you just want to explain what this thing is about Silbury Hill and where it is, just roughly? Just explain a little bit so they understand, because some people won't understand.
Okay, I think just first of all to say that Silbury Hill is really important because it's one of the first places that you can start to show how really, if you like, the establishment or the archaeological group, or if you like, the established group of archaeologists have kind of convinced us with main sort of structures around the world, and they're providing us with information which is basically incorrect. But when we start to look at Silbury Hill, and I'll explain in a moment, Silbury Hill is really a big, largest man-made mound in Europe, which is situated in Wiltshire near a place called Avebury. And I'll not say too much about it because I have got slides to show. Sometimes pictures actually give a lot more information than me talking. But the significant thing I just want to say is that where you can start to prove that Silbury Hill, in fact, isn't as the establishment says, a mound of chalk, it is actually potentially something else. And you start to look at dates and things, and you start to realize that everything else we talk about, Stonehenge, the Great Pyramids, etc., they're really all suspect in terms of what they are and the ages and the dates and so on. And this is quite significant. And if we start to look really at ourselves and our sort of humanity, how we arrived and where we came from, when we've basically been given quite a lot of misinformation, which really in the last 20 years, many of us are now really looking into it and coming up with amazing pieces of information to show that the establishment views on these ancient structures are in fact incorrect. And the implications for this are really quite important. Well, really significant. Sorry, Karen?
I was going to say staggering, and that was a bit ironic, really, because a lot of them are stepped, aren't they, and staggered. So, yeah.
Yes, I think everything, when you look at everything, is basically they're structures to do with tombs for pharaohs or rituals, druid rituals, or often they're to do with ceremonies relating to death or the afterlife. And in fact, I think it's quite the opposite. I think what we see in the pyramids and Stonehenge and Silbury Hill and so on is to do with birth and life. And it's quite a departure from, again, the mainstream ideas of what these structures were built for.
So the complete opposite.
Yeah. I don't know if it's worth, I'm not sure how easy this is for me to do this. Can I quickly show you some slides? Karen, is that?
You can share, but you have to be careful not to share the Hangout link. So what you need to do is go up to the left-hand side of the screen, and you should see a few buttons. Run your cursor over the left-hand side of the screen.
Yeah.
You'll see a blue one with conversation and a green one, like a tick on it.
There's a green screen share.
Yeah. Have you got your pictures open in separate pages?
Yeah.
Right. So press the arrow, and it will say share screen or application window. You need to press application window, not share screen, because it shares the link of the Hangout.
Okay, I've clicked on application window, yeah.
You can see your work?
I click show. I've got to click on one of them. Is it Hangouts? Google? Is it Google Hangouts?
No, you don't want to show your. You don't want to show. You've done it through application.
Yeah, I've got into application.
Hangout.
I've got into application window. It's got a Google Hangouts with a green sort of label, and Google Hangouts with the main Google logo.
Right, but you don't want to be showing the Google Hangout. You need to be showing your work.
Okay.
You need to have your work on a separate window, a separate tab, not a tab of what you're doing, but a completely separate browser tab.
Yeah, it needs to be opened up in another window on a browser.
Ah, okay, yeah. So
just stop share screening. Just turn it all off. Go back. Get out of it.
Okay.
And open up your work in a new browser window, whichever browser you use, because I'm on Google, whatever it is.
Right.
Can you see your work there?
I can, yeah.
Now go back to sharing.
Hold on a minute.
Arrow on the left-hand side. Green arrow, but don't press entire screen. Press application window.
I can't see that. So, oh, here it goes. So say again. That's
okay. You've got to application window, yes?
Yeah. I've got
press the
screen
application window. Screen share, and then not.
I got it.
Application window.
Okay.
Yay! He's done it.
Yeah.
Okay. What are we looking at here then? Tell everybody.
There's a thing come up that says Google Hangouts is sharing window with hangout.google.com. Stop sharing that. Click stop sharing.
No, you're okay as it is.
Okay. Okay, is everybody happy? Can you see that?
Yeah, it's a little bit small, but don't worry. I'll do full screen.
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah, full screen would be nice.
On the right-hand side of that red bar, it says there's a square, there's a cross, don't press that, and there's a box in the middle. Do you see it on the right-hand side? Press that, it'll make it full screen.
A box in there.
Look, above here, you've got Sun and Moon Family saved to this PC. John Cowie, then you've got a thing for a file. Pardon? Don't worry, just carry on. We can see it. We can see it. Go on.
I'm going to screen, but I can see. Oh, wait a minute.
I can read it just about. It says, today Silbury Hill is recognised as an artificial chalk mound. So you carry on, John.
Yeah, sure. I'm just trying to see if there's any way I can zoom in. Is that? No, I can't do that. Any better?
No, just carry on though. We can see it.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute.
1 second. F11, is that not an expand button? I can't remember. I've not got my laptop here, but it's F11 or F12.
Don't know.
Full screen F11, I'm sure. Try that, John. The F11 button at the top.
Yeah, I pressed it. Yeah.
No.
I've got another.
It don't matter.
No.
We'll work with it.
No, sorry, let me just go back. Okay, can you work with that? Sorry about that.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Oh, I'm really sorry, but anyway, because some of the writing might be a bit small, so hopefully. So basically what I'm saying here, you can see a picture. Can you see a picture of Silbury Hill?
Yeah.
And it's basically the largest it's basically the largest man-made mound in Europe as part of Stonehenge Avebury, UNESCO World Heritage Site. And as you can see from the description, it's basically recognized as the largest man-made mound in Europe. Now, in 2007, there's an English Heritage Conservation and Restoration project, which hopefully you can read, which basically provided clear evidence to show that Silbury Hill was something more than a pile of chalk. Okay. Can you read that all right?
We're on the first box, yeah?
Yeah.
I'll read it. Today, Silbury Hill is recognised as an artificial chalk mound near Avebury in the English countryside of Wiltshire. It is the largest man-made mound in Europe and is part of the Stonehenge, Avebury and associated sites. Was that UNESCO World Heritage Site? We can see.
Yeah, it's not. This is not. No.
You need to go to the second one on the left. We can see there's number 2, number 3, number 4. So you need to press number 2.
I can't see it. Yeah, we've got a different screen to what. No, it's just. Here we got the second one. Just says Silbury Hill on the top. With Silbury Hill, can you see that?
No, you're pressed on number 1 at the moment. You need to press number 2.
Oh, I see. I see what I got. I see a way of doing it. Yeah, hold on. Is that better?
No, we're still on number 1.
No, I can't seem to get it to work.
You can see
Unfortunately.
the little pictures on the left, though. You just have to talk us through it, I think.
Yeah, no, it's.
You may be on a different window than the window that you're.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, let me
Yeah.
just go back.
Because normally we could see your arrow going across your screen. So
Yeah.
you have to do it on the actual
There you go.
screen. There you
Now
go.
you're on it.
Now
You're on it.
the screen. Next slide, number 2. Number 2.
You've gone to number 3. Go to number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
number 2.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
Yay,
right.
we're there. Well done, John.
Now, can you see that? All right.
Hmm.
Can you read it?
Do you want me to read it?
Let me just see
Okay,
if I
I'll
can-
read it. The English. That's it. The English. Do you want me to read it? The English Heritage Conservation and Restoration project in 2007 provided clear evidence to show that Silbury Hill was something more than a pile of chalk. The English Heritage Establishment of Archaeologists continued to stick with the traditional mound of chalk theory, but findings it's more and difficult to ignore the possibility that it was originally built as an early pyramid.
Yeah. Okay. Now, because of the problems we're having, Karen, I'll just kind of go through some of these quite quickly, because what basically they found to still hold on to their idea that it was a pile of chalk was that they found this antler, which they dated to 4,400 years old, which was found just inside the hill, which you can just about see here, just at the entrance. And they carbon dated it to 4,400 years old. There's a couple of guys in Joss McDowell and Don Stewart, Yale University, dated a similar antler, and they found 3 different dates for it. There was one date for 5,000 years, 9,000, and 10,000, and basically to show that the dating of the antler was, wasn't reliable. And the fact that it was used to build the hill was just pure speculation. So that was nonsense. This is Jill Campbell, and she was the English heritage paleontologist, environmentalist, and she was in one of these huts down here. So you can see that she's basically saying they found ants and insects inside the pyramid, inside Silbury Hill, and surprise, they dated them to 4,400 years. But as you can see, there's no clean room facilities. It looks air's been pumped in, so there is no way you can pick out these ants and insects to basically date them to the same date as the antler, which of course is the established date for Silbury Hill and Stonehenge of 4,400 years old. Okay?
Yeah.
So move on. If I move on to the next, so this is, if you like, what they are hanging on to. There's not a lot of information as to what they have, why they they call Silbury Hill a mound, and why they dated it to 4,400 years, which coincidentally relates to the same age as Stonehenge and the pyramids in Egypt. Now, this is a little bit of an eye test, so I'll be very careful here. This is the new evidence. So what I'm really showing you here is there's a chamber. They found chambers inside the hill. This particular slide here, you'll find there's a layer of very unusual layer going right the way through. This is the base. This is below Silbury Hill. This is above, and there's this very fine layer of material going all the way through. It comes across here as well. You also find blocks on top of around the top of Silbury Hill, and I did a construction. This is roughly the size of these blocks they found. There's also a sarsen stone found in the side of Silbury Hill, which was once upon a time on the top of the hill, which was probably broken and damaged around about the 11th century, as it was used as a lookout post. We also found flint flakes, which I sent off to be checked for dating, and they came back as about 12,000 years old. And there was a mollusk or a snail discovered. There was a few of them. They're also dated to around 11,000 years old. But again, both of them are dismissed as being not reliable information. So they are playing the similar game, saying, well, that's not reliable. But these were found inside Silbury Hill, and these were the dates that were attributed. This was from the University of Mexico, and this is from the University of Arizona. I'll come back to that in a moment. So this is basically showing where we talked about Silbury Hill being just a mound of chalk. You can see there's other things that we've found or discovered, which has been kept fairly quiet about. Now, I won't get, again, the guy who was leading the investigation, the English heritage guy, a guy called Jim Leary, and his book, The Story of Silbury Hill, he actually mentions an article in the Marlborough Times where there's a brother and sister were actually playing inside a cavity inside Silbury Hill. So actually, although he's the main English heritage archaeologist, in his book, he does mention a chamber inside the hill. And this, again, is just a bit of a bigger picture of this layer of material between the hill and the foundation. And this is going all the way through and across. You can see it coming all the way across here. And I had that sent off to a university in the States, and they checked it out, and they thought it might be, it was now like a dark brown layer of like muddy, very buttery textured material, and they reckon it could have been a layer of mica, which is quite interesting. And they didn't do
what
this.
is micra? What is that then? Oh, there. What are you going to tell us?
It's basically an insulating material, which I'll come on to, Karen, in a moment, okay? And what's intriguing about it is that they didn't actually check. I think if they drilled through the actual material, let me just go. But if they'd actually drilled through here, right to the very end, and found out where the material it ended, and did the same on like points of a compass, maybe about 4 points, I think they could have maybe got some idea what shape it was, if it was circular or if it was square or maybe even an octagonal shape. I think we may have to wait until ground penetrating radar equipment becomes linked to satellites becomes more sophisticated. Then I think we may be able to find out what area this layer of material covers at the base of the pyramid. So that was unusual, and that again was just dismissed as being just ignored by the establishment. This again is Jim Leary. He was the main archaeologist on English heritage archaeologist on the project, and they found, as I said, large stones, and the discovery, and this is his comment, large pieces of sarsen stone near the top has been a surprise. And of course, the usual thing is given the almost certainly a religious and ceremonial nature of Silbury. So it's back to this idea of being a ceremonial kind of druid mound. This is a large block of sarsen stone on the top of the hill. So what we're finding is, if we go into the end, we're getting a big block of sarsen stone, which we're getting blocks showing there've been some blocks of inside the structure. there's been a cavity inside the structure, and it's basically built on a spur with a lot of water surrounding it, and water is also significant in the. We find that significant in all pyramids around the world. So God, all I'm trying to the rest of the group, what I'm just trying to show you here is that where we see Silbury Hill, and those of you who've been here or those who would like to come and see it in Wiltshire near Avebury, not really far from Stonehenge, part of, if you like, I call it the Wessex, wasn't actually a pile of chalk, and it's very significant that these findings. Why? I mean, this particular sarsen stone in the top was broken up and so on, and it's disappeared. We don't know where it's gone. We don't know where it's gone, and we find this kind of material in pyramids in Egypt. We find them in Bosnia and so on, and this material is used as a transducer. It basically converts one form of energy into another, and I'll talk about that just briefly in a moment. So all I wanted to show you with this evening's presentation, which is just so important, that Silbury Hill is not a chalk mound. It's something more than a chalk mound, and there's a leaflet I produced that basically highlights this particular evidence. There's lots more information in here than obviously I've gone over. I just wanted to get the point across to you that there's a lot more to Silbury Hill than just this big pile of chalk. But if I look, you can see here, even this is just in 1723, a few hundred years ago, you can see Silbury Hill looking much higher. It's obviously sinking over the period of time. It's slowly collapsing down into further and further down because of obviously the weather we have in the UK, the rain and so on, that makes this. And if I look into my kind of my type of interpretation, this is what I think it looked like. Obviously, probably bigger because I couldn't get it all up on the paper. Probably much higher than this. But just to give you an idea of what it may have been about 30. This is maybe about 12,000 years ago. What it looked like, and what it's collapsed into today. So it was basically a pyramid with a transducer cap on it, a sarsen stone cap, probably white, because limestone, white structure, and had water basically around it as well. There's water involved, which you find in all pyramids. Now, what I've done really here, all I'm doing, Karen, this evening is just to show what Silbury Hill potentially a pyramid. Now, the pyramids are found on I've discovered found on every continent on Earth, and there's a reason for that, is because basically pyramids are important in that they generate energy, they generate electrostatic electricity within the structure, and that's something which I basically, rather than going to, I explain in great detail in a Glastonbury Symposium talk I did in 2013, which you can find on YouTube or you can find via my website. But that basically explains really the significance of how a pyramid converts ionic current into all different forms of energies. And this is quite interesting that when the vertical shaft collapsed in Silbury Hill in May 2000, a number of basically crop circle enthusiasts crawled down inside the collapsed structure. There's a vertical shaft that went down through Silbury Hill, and the mobile phones that were destroyed by the energy that was found. And actually, the DVD shows a chamber that was also found. You can just see a picture of it there. Again, confirming there was chambers inside the hill, as you get with the Egyptian pyramids and so on. And also, there was actually a ball, seemingly there was a ball of light, like a capacitor discharge, came out of the Silbury Hill. So basically, although it's no longer a pyramid, it's still able to generate, still has a shape, or still storing energy inside the structure. Now, just at this sort of time, basically, just a picture of me inside Silbury Hill. And at this time, basically talking to all sorts of people and exploring the Bosnian pyramids, the Egyptian pyramids in terms of this seismology. So basically energy, we found that each pyramid in Egypt was emitting its own signal through the tip of the pyramid was emitting its own frequency, and this had been measured by Russian scientists. So this is basically the kind of idea that things are quite different to what the establishment views are, and I just kind of wrote about this in my book, which basically come to the idea that may possibly there was a extraterrestrial link to this amazing civilization back about 12,000 years ago, because you can see from Silbury Hill that they obviously had amazing knowledge of quantum physics. They understood about looking down from above, as we've seen with other pyramids and other shapes and patterns that we've seen on our planet, on Earth. So it's quite it all kind of stems really from me passing Silbury, working for Intel, thinking how are we so clever, able to produce convert silicon, which is basically sand, into microprocessors and develop these computers and all this amazing technology, and walking past this particular structure along with Avebury. Now, finally, just there's a whole list of articles which, again, if you need to find out a lot more information, a lot more of where I'm coming from, there are a number of articles here that explain really much better than what I can do here on a kind of 10-15 minute spot with you. But it starts quite an amazing journey as to Silbury Hill's not what it is, Stonehenge is not what it is, the pyramids they're not what they seem. There is something really much more significant going on with these structures, and there's something much really the whole humanity, our evolution started probably about 12,000 years ago, and it was interrupted by a massive Earth tsunami or meteorite strike or something, which devastated the planet in about 10,500 years ago. So there was a disruption to this amazing civilization. And if you look at Egyptian civilization, it is, you look at it closely, you'll see it's a civilization in decline. It's not, something greater than that was in place before the Egyptian civilization, which is really where we start with our history. So what happened in prehistory, I think the Silbury Hill gives us that little bit of a clue as to what went on. This is really what I've been following up over the last 20 years. Hope that's been of interest, Karen, and the group.
Of course, I'm so intrigued with Silbury Hill because I've been and stood on top of it. I don't remember a hole in it. I've sat on there a few times. Obviously, you can't now since the collapse. You can't go and sit on it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I think even there was a chap. There was gosh, the name just escaped me for a moment.
But there's another little pyramid, isn't there, John? There's Merlin's Mound in Marlborough,
That's
10
right.
miles away.
Yeah, they'll call it Marlborough Mound, but that's just across in the college, and that's interesting. And again, these places all produce positive energy, and of course, there's Marlborough College is right surrounds this particular second mound, but there's been lots of them seemingly. I talked to when I first arrived here a few years, maybe about 20, 30 years ago. Sadly, most of these guys are no longer with us, but they could explain and tell you where there were different pyramid type shapes that have been since disappeared in that lifetime over maybe since the beginning of the 20th century, maybe 19 something. It's changed, and of course realised that even Stonehenge, the stones have been moved around there in the early part of the 20th century. So it's.
Can I ask you something then? Because obviously, as you know, there's your work.
Mm-hmm.
There's people making their own personal videos about Silbury Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's obviously the Historical Society. When this collapsed, they were doing something, but as you know, they weren't reporting it correctly. And then there's a few other people on there where there's orbs that appear around it. And then this American lady was talking about how the long barrow was connected to it and that they used to sing and things, and it used to resonate through that long barrow and it used to go off to Marlborough. Is that what you think it was? Do you think that was what was happening? They were doing stuff with acoustics or not? Just asking.
Karen, I don't know. I think a lot of things I have to, again, I accuse the establishment, the archaeologists who go back, they hark back to things that were talked about years ago, and they stick to their guns and they don't change their ideas. And I have to be totally open. I hear all sorts of information about how sound resonates and all sorts of things, and how people have had past life experiences and they've come back and they've seen themselves there, and Silbury Hill being a large pyramid. And there's all sorts of things go on with sound experiments and so on that is busy out with my understanding, but they're definitely things that are important to piece together. Really, they're all bits of a jigsaw, and how it all fitted together. I mean, I still wonder if that somehow these things could be produced, apart from producing electrical energy and seismic signals and magnetic energy and bionosphere and changing the atmosphere within a magnetic field around a pyramid and so on. Maybe it could produce some kind of sound that could lift things. I mean, they may well find that they understood, levitation. And I'm talking here more of the bigger pyramids in Egypt, where maybe they were generating sound that were able to move things and lift things. It's all very fascinating, but that's an area that other people are exploring and probably come up with better.
Was right next to Silbury Hill, well, a couple of miles away. Obviously, you've got this long barrow,
yes,
which they say the burial chamber, which we know it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Avebury, which is a stone circle, and you've got Strawberry Hill. Are these all connected? They must be all connected as part of, because this woman was saying that Stonehenge is the motherboard.
Mm.
But Silbury Hill and that was the womb.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I said maybe earlier in the conversation there that it's certainly part of a massive, I call it the Wessex complex. You've got Silbury Hill, and you go even out. There's places further out to the left, to the east, and to the west, and to the north, and to the south, and even you go into the Salisbury Plain. I mentioned before Maria Wheatley, who I work with, and she does a lot of work there with the MOD, because obviously the MOD won't let anyone onto the land, and she's found all sorts of things in there. So you just think there's been a massive complex, and it's probably gone all the way down to to Brittany, and maybe even some of it's gone up towards the west of Scotland. You don't know if they're linked. I mean, as I said, there's about 90 odd stone circles in Aberdeenshire. Were they all separate, or were they all like separate sort of like cities, or were they linked? But certainly, to answer your question, Karen, in this area in Wiltshire, I think they were all linked. Yeah.
Because this woman was sort of saying with Stonehenge and Silbury Hill, and it went down to the Great Pyramids in Giza. So do you believe that on it must be an energy line or something?
Well, yes, I think again, if I get back into, we won't get too much into the talk I did about how pyramids convert produce an ionic current, can convert ions easily break down into atoms easily break down into ions, and you get an ionic flow as the negative ions move towards the sun and positive ions move towards the earth. So you produce basically an earth energy or a ley line energy, and these seem to be like old-fashioned Wi-Fi. They were going around the world, and if you can almost see ancient churches and pyramids on these lines. And again, there are people more expert than me that will show you maps and drawings of like hundreds of these lines, maybe even thousands of these lines, and with really amazing how the tie up or the link up to what we still see cathedrals. Because obviously something like Salisbury Cathedral or Durham Cathedral, they were probably original very small areas, but of positive energy. It may have been some kind of places of the part of this ancient civilization, but they obviously were so important that they always were just people just kept building on those particular areas, and so they haven't really moved off the line of what you want to call them ley lines or energy lines. So that again, Karen, as you say, yeah, they're definitely lines, energy produced, and how they were linked and what they were used for. We don't really know.
Could I just ask you something? Have you finished showing your presentation right now? Because you can stop screen sharing and then we can see you. Or
oh yeah. Sorry, how do I get? Hold on.
Should be a button which says stop screen sharing.
Can you see me now? Oh, right.
No, You need to press the stop screen sharing. There must be something on your panel that you can see in front of you that says, that's it.
Okay.
You got it.
So, Angel, do you want to say something now? Because Angel is our pyramid person on our
Oh,
Sun and
brilliant.
Moon
Yes,
group. Go.
yes.
Well, I was going to ask what your current feeling of the configuration prior to the damage and manipulation that has been done, because I know they bored into it in areas, and they did wooden structure and then drilled up into areas and areas. What do you think its original configuration was?
I think just based on what I've seen in other parts of the world, it was basically a pyramid, and I think within the pyramid there were, as you can see more clearly in the Great Pyramid in Egypt, or the Red Pyramid, or the the Bent Pyramid. You can see the kind of situation where you've got a pyramid shape, which you need, and within the pyramid you've got chambers, and you've got underground areas where basically they tapped into water beneath the pyramid. So basically, just what they were, or what Silbury Hill was, is just a classic pyramid shape. And if you were to make some money, I think, if you wanted to construct a pyramid, you could sell to the public. You could produce a pyramid and within the pyramid you could put some kind of sarsen stone or some kind of transducer effect as a cap on the top of it, and have water underneath it. Say if you had this in your garden, flowing underneath or just circulating underneath the pyramid, and that basically creates a atmosphere of energy flowing up through the earth, up through the tip of the pyramid, and vice versa, energy coming back down through the pyramid down into the earth. So you got a really quite an important flow of positive energy going on inside the pyramid. And for those who like to meditate and so on, there may well be some kind of beneficial effects, which I haven't explored yet, because I'm at a stage where this is something I leave to other people as to how we could develop that kind of idea as a form of place to go and relax in your back of your garden somewhere. So, but I hope that makes some sense, because it's but I think what we've learned from the big pyramids, we can downsize into something which can be quite intriguing.
What I was asking more is at the base area, from my understanding, is if you were to take the topmost level of the entrance that goes down and then went up, and then you had the mound.
Yeah.
The mounds around it, the way it was made, it looked like, and I was told when it floods, it actually does this to this day, the water level will come up and kind of almost encircle the base of it.
Yes.
But even though the water encircles the base, there are the two conduits that you can get into that go down and would go under that, because they're a mound of dirt that the water would fill up and go over. So the conduit that would come down would have a conduit that came out, which was a separate pool from the pool that was around the base of the structure. That's my looking. Whether or not it was open air or whether it just collapsed from time, that still kind of gray area on. As far as it having an actual pyramid shape, I kind of can't go along with that, because there have been studies where, I think it was even Karen who pointed out to me, they did some ground penetrating radar, and you could see how it's kind of squared with dirt on top. So it is a constructed form, but it wasn't constructed like the pyramids where it went up to a point. It was constructed in a mound shape, and you can see that based on its construction. I think anything above and beyond that, bringing it up to a pyramid, is kind of more speculation and conjecture, trying to force feed it into a pyramid shape, as opposed to just looking at it for what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that if we were to look at the fact that chalk, which is much like limestone, where it's a fairly inert, doesn't have a lot of magnetic properties, no metallic properties, things of that nature, I think it would allow the water to be the, and I do like to point out to everyone that I can talk to that water is a crystal. It's a crystal in its format, but water is a crystal, and hence it does have properties. Also, if you're familiar with the Lord Kelvin drip generator, water, when you if you have an area where you allow water to condense or an area where you allow water to evaporate, either of the two, you will start to create a deviation between those two bodies of water, and one of them will become positive in comparison to the other. And electricity is the movement of electrons from a high volume to a lower volume, because nature abhors a vacuum. And this is how I believe it would have been utilized to create electricity, is by allowing condensation in one area and or evaporation in one area. And between the two bodies of water, you would have your energy. And that's, I try to reverse engineer the physical structure as opposed to conjecture what it would have been. I don't really think that that structure demonstrates that it would have gone up with nice squared edges to a point, because when you look at the structure, it is rounded. And when you look at the structure inside of it, its physical structure deeper down inside of it is a squared structure with kind of dirt on top of it. When I say squared, I mean the foundational pieces are, you can see where there are rows of stronger, more compact areas where they're laid on top of. So I think the physical shape, as much as it always has been through time, other than the conduit down through the bottom, the inside of it that may have been damaged and broke through the top, or may not.
Yeah, there was a channel that was dug through, but by, forgot his name now, in 16 something or other. But anyway, no, I can't disagree with you. I think, you know, what I found, which was strange to make me think that it wasn't a mound shape, was the time. If you think of it being 4,400 years old, then you think, well, I'm not quite sure, but I think it's much older. I think Silbury Hill probably more like 11,000 years old. But then when and again, this has been logged by English Heritage, I found these blocks. They were like radial blocks that were found at the top, and there's still some of them showing like a brick wall. And then there's this cap on top, the sarsen stone cap right at the top, which was broken, but that was something that sat on the top of the hill. And again, we've seen similar things in Egypt. We've seen similar things in China, where there's been this kind of diamond-shaped, almost glittering cone on top of a pyramid. But again, I do explain how the Silbury Hill and the other pyramids generate electricity. This is in this Glastonbury talk, so I don't want to get into much detail. But you know, you need to read that, how basically water underneath is ionized and it moves up. I do this thing with a suspended pyramid, which I suspend, and I rub my hands together and I point it at the pyramid. This is the first thing I do in this talk. And as I rub my hands together and point it at the pyramid starts to rotate. The suspended cardboard pyramid starts to rotate because of we're mainly made of water, so we're talking about oxygen and hydrogen ions flowing, and but if you like, it's all kind of has to be speculation, except what I've been trying to say or explain is that I think this Silbury Hill, to show it to be more weathered over maybe a longer period of time, as is the pyramids in Egypt. They're much longer period of weathering rather than the 4,500 years that they speculate. But I think it's good that you've got your views and your ideas of how we're basically coming at it as well, which is a nice thing to say. We're both actually saying that, yeah, it's producing energy, whatever it is, if it's a mound or if it's a cone. When people have said to me, no, Silbury Hill wasn't a pyramid, it was more of a cone shape. Can't argue. I can't argue with any of the other ideas, except it's just been there a long time, a long time, and when it was built, probably the climate was much different to what it was today. But anyway, it's weathered quite a lot, as we've seen even from 1743, it shrunk quite a bit. But no, I think, yeah, I'm speculating, but I think I try and find bits of information that maybe make it a bit more of a geometric, as they did in Egypt, and also to show that this knowledge was prevalent throughout the planet, throughout Earth. Whenever it was, 12, 13,000 years ago, they were building these structures all over the place. But
Artist is asking if you've, since you've been there, have you ever played with a compass in its vicinity to see how, if the compass would be affected by the physical mound?
well, I think it has been done, and a lot of people have done it, and they just really see where trying to work out. Difficult, but Silbury Hill's not a good example because we don't know. Just as you correctly say, I can't say it's a pyramid.
I don't think it's currently in operation because of how the water is not up at the right level and because it's damaged. But so it may, however, if it happens to sit on a ley line, a compass may be affected just because of its physical location. And I was only asking that because it was.
No, I was interested. But it's a good question because it's been said that all pyramids, they face in the same direction, north, south, east, west. To the point, if you go whatever pyramid you look at, and looking around the different pyramids around, the ones that are actually pyramids. I mean, the Bosnian pyramids, they're like natural, but we're not quite sure. Jury's out for me on the Bosnian pyramids. I'm not quite sure what they are. Are they natural pyramids?
I currently believe the Bosnian pyramids, when you look at them, all the conduits they're finding underneath the pyramids are all at a flat elevation. And when you look at it, the water wear, I see visually water wear within the structure, that about the water would ride about 1/3 of the way up through the conduit that they're exposing. And I think that the conduits are actually just that. They are conduits for the moving of the static electricity, or electricity as it is.
Yeah.
And when you look at the Bosnian pyramids, they keep coming in across areas where there are rocks along the wall that are muddied up, and then behind that is a conduit that goes up to the surface as well, because they were using these as conduits, and they were filling them with a liquid. I believe it should be primarily water, but the reason that they were blocked off is not because they were trying to, do anything other than the fact that if you have a conduit of water going up to the surface that comes down and touches the area where the water is in that channel, then the static electricity would move via the water. However, you don't want the water flowing down into the system and flooding the system. So it needed to have that as a separate conduit. However, the people that are digging through the Bosnian pyramids, while they are luckily noting it down and mapping out what they're doing, I think they're doing it a little bit blinded by, they don't understand how electricity really works and what nature would allow electricity to do, and they're attacking it with the wrong bias, is my opinion. I'm really hoping that we get inside the Bosnian pyramids, and I'm hoping it has a structure much like those of the Giza pyramids. And up until a year ago, I was really hopeful that when they went in there, it would echo the Giza pyramids, and we would be able to then be able to say, see the area that we damaged in the Giza pyramid when we broke through the antechamber area, and when we broke up through the grotto into the grand gallery, and when we broke in through the main entrance, and we could recreate those. We have the blueprints for the Giza pyramid located in the Nazca lines in Peru. So I'm working with a person in Canada and one in Holland right now to recreate and turn them into a blueprint and actually recreate the structures in Giza instead of having guesswork using the blueprints. And then once it's recreated, show how it functions, which is what I'm working on, is to use as little speculation as possible and as much documentation as possible.
Good.
But I also, just so you understand what Common Core is. They call it Common Core over there, right? Common Core education. Because I saw a lecture on how you were pointing down that our education system is deliberately dumbing down our children with misdirection and miseducation, which is what here in the States, we have a lady named Charlotte Isabey. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she wrote a book, Deliberately Dumbing Down of America, which is basically saying the same thing. In the 70s, 80s, we started a huge campaign, an educational campaign of how to dumb down our students, tell them lies. You know, those pieces of paper that we use every day to transact transactions are money, when, well, they kind of are money. They're currency, but they don't represent real money. They have their fiat, but they don't teach our kids that. They don't teach our kids anything. They teach them how to obey. They don't teach you how to. They teach you what to think.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think they're trying to make us too intellectual. In other words, lots of other people's ideas, other ideas they want us to, you know, go back to Shakespeare and all this kind of stuff. And but because there's more and more going to university, then you start to lose a bit of creativity. But having said that, because of the internet and because we're doing now, losing the number of people writing their own books or coming up with their own ideas, and because we're all clever, we're all very, very clever. And so in a strange way, the establishment are trying to curtail some of this with some of the projects that they're doing, but they can't actually hold us back, because of basically what's happened in the last 10, 15, 20 years with computer technology and internet and so on.
Oh yeah, up until half a decade ago, I would not have been able to even visualize what I believe I have come to understood about the particular Giza Plateau. And that's only because I pretty much turned down the volume and just watched videos and learned as I was watching videos, hey, that's not what the Giza theory says, or look how this is configured. That's not what the Giza theory said. You know, the whole tomb dogma is based on a structure which is not the representation of the structure that's located in Giza. It's close to it. You know, it's you know, I could draw you a picture, and if I leave a whole lot out, you don't get to see the truth. And I
think it's intriguing how basically we're all beginning to realize how basically we are becoming manipulated, and we're being, oh, this is just accept this, accept that, but we're now questioning things all the time, which is quite significant. And I'm not going to go into it now because basically I wrote about this recently in an article, which is one of the articles listed called Realizationism, just explaining really this kind of movement, why we're not being fooled by Project Fear and Project Greed, and yeah, somebody asked the question: where did political correctness come from? There's a lot of good things in it, a lot of great things in that, but it's again seems to be a way of curtailing free speech.
Yes, political correctness
at some extreme levels.
Animal to get its nose under the tent of what they can tell you can and can't say.
Yeah,
and then from there they can just start expanding it. Oh, you can't say Mr. or Mrs. because, well, what if that's not really a Mr.? It might be a resistor. I don't know.
It's quite intriguing. It's quite intriguing how they're doing this. I'm also intrigued by, I call them the elites, and they basically, there's not a lot of them, but they basically manipulate the establishment through their Project Greed and Fear and so on, and they in turn manipulate us through the same ideas of Project Fear and Greed and so on. But yeah, this political correctness is something which has crept in over the last few years, and exactly what you've said. It's they're kind of moving it forward so that you basically, as somebody said the other day, it's very difficult what you can and can't say, especially if you're in a position of like a politician or in business or whatever. It becomes, even these guys are becoming hamstrung, as it were. But,
I just saw an article, I think it was yesterday, how they're considering pulling some of the older James Bond movies because James Bond manipulates and abuses and utilizes women and treats them like you know, is of something to be used, and it's like, oh, you know.
Anyway, we're moving a little bit away from the pyramids.
I get that.
So we'll get back on. We'll get back on track. But it's I think it's all, what I suppose I'm trying to say, it all starts with this little thing, me going past Silbury Hill, realizing that it's not what I've been told it is. And then I look at the other things, well, actually, not what I've been told it is, and it's not what I've been read, so you start to question and question and question. And I just want everybody to realize that, watch out, try not to be manipulated, try to think for yourself, because if you can, then you can become more creative, and you can get involved with, like we're doing this evening, get involved with other like-minded people, share ideas. And of course, a lot of it is just speculation, I know, but if it spins off some idea for someone else to go off, and as Karen was saying, somebody's talking about the sound that's made, noises that are developed, and people. I remember being in the center of a pyramid with a group, and they were doing their ohms inside the main area inside the Great Pyramid, but so getting echoes and sounds, and so there's all sorts of people doing all sorts of experiments. Some of them you say were, when I first started 20 years ago, I was seen as a crackpot, but in the last 10 years now, it's becoming more that alien life could exist out there in the universe. I mean, if 10 years ago, that was still seen as that's just crazy, but now we understand there's potentially billions of Earth-type planets out there, so there's bound to be some kind of life, and possibly even there would be life on Mars not that long ago. I'm talking here maybe about 15,000 years ago. But anyway, it's again that's all speculation. But the idea that alien life doesn't exist is now no longer taboo, and it's making people, giving opportunities for people like ourselves to explore the possibilities of extraterrestrial life on our planet. Which I explain
Could I just say that Jay?
Why we're so clever.
Can I just say Jay's joined us? Hi, Jay.
Hey, Jay.
Hi, Jay.
Hello, it's an honor to be here. Pleasure. Hi.
Hi.
John is talking about this pyramid up the road from me.
I have a question.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Sorry?
I just waited.
Go on, Artis.
Okay. Next time, if you go to a location like Silbury here, or another mount, what I like people to do, I'm going to make a video for myself of it, bring your compass.
Yes.
Try to actually actually film your compass while you're walking on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Walk over the side with the compass and see what the compass needle does.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are certain sites in Peru and even Egypt, if you walk with the compass over a site,
mm-hmm.
the needle will turn in all kinds of directions.
Yeah.
And it would be cool if people were able to, when they go, even your local church, because a lot of churches are built on ancient sites.
Mm-hmm.
Just go, if you go to your church next Sunday, bring your compass, just walk to your church. Or if you have an ancient site or supposedly ancient sites near your, just walk over that area with the compass and just watch what the compass does. Because I was amazed.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That one guy did it, and you could actually see when he held it close to the stones, the compass turned in certain degrees. Not random, no, 45. 180, 90, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I was amazed, and I thought, well, more people should do that, because then you can have proof that sites have magnetic properties.
Yeah, it's interesting that if you go to Avebury and go on some of the tall stones at Avebury, if you do that with a compass, you move up the stone, the compass actually flips round.
Yeah.
It goes, and then move up the stone a bit further, it flips back again.
Yeah.
And you move up even further, it flips. It's quite incredible watching the compass needle move when you're just moving up the length of a stone at Avebury.
Yeah, indeed. And that's amazing, because a lot of old monolithic sites and ancient sites have that certain magnetic property. But it's not recorded that much. So
No.
I always, every day, a lot of people have now the mobile phones, so it's far more easier if you have a compass to record it, and that we can have recordings of those places that they are indeed proof,
Yeah.
FDO proof that they are magnetic properties in those locations. But
Yeah.
I'm going to do it very soon. I'm going to near some stone dolmens here in Germany, in the Netherlands.
Yes,
We'll
brilliant.
walk with the compass on the sides and hold them near the stones to see what happens.
I'd like to hear what your results are, definitely.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that up until recently, the only people that would have a compass would be your captains of a boat, and or your explorers that would actually use it. And even then, most of them knew how to read the stars, so the compass was not quite as prevalent. So they wouldn't even have a way to have tested that. You know, compass used to be expensive. Nowadays, you can probably buy them at the 5 and dime.
You make an absolutely brilliant point. Brilliant point.
And current day, we're actually losing the compass because we all have it in our phones, and our phones don't even use true magnetic poles. They sense the cell phone towers and calculate which way is north, and they tell you which way is north, and they could lie to you. Starting next month, they could start to slowly deviate it, and we would be none the wiser unless we actually whipped out a actual compass. And I point out a perfectly real-time example is that of time.
Yeah.
And that we used to use chronological devices, put a stick in the ground, use a sundial, and actually let the sun tell us time. And right now, these little toys dictate our time to us. And even our government confuses us by saying, oh, this month we're going to have time, you know, our daylight savings time start this week instead of that week, you know, and they really dictate time to us. So we are much more getting on to the world of being told what our world is instead of us independently knowing what our world is. If we woke up in the middle of the desert, most of us would have no idea how to tell time and no idea how to tell what direction, because we'd be out of cell phone range.
Yeah. Oh no, if you go into a supermarket and you get a young kid there and the machine's not working and you give them some money and get change, he won't give you the right change.
I do say something else as well. As far as we can tell, the stars and everything are not millions of miles away. They're only miles away. We've never been into space, and we've never been to Mars. There's nothing to Mars because Mars isn't that big. It's just where you see it up in the sky. Another lie. The lies. Really incredible that they've gone this far to lie about our past, our history, everything.
Some of the medical science is starting to wake up to the falsehood of Darwinism, because we now have mitochondrial DNA and DNA period, things that Darwin didn't have at his time because the Watson-Crick guy hadn't yet, you know, played with it. So we know so much about what we are force-fed, I'm not going to say taught, in school, is indoctrination, not truly education. It's just so oblivious. And that's part of the problem is you can walk up to somebody with a compass and tell them, hey, look what happens when I move across this rock. And it may not even sink into them because they don't understand the implications. Because like, well, what's that thing? Oh, it tells you which way is north. Oh, just like my cell phone does? You know, we are taken one step further and further from knowing our physical surroundings, and we're just trusting the devices that tell us about our surroundings. You know, you wake up, it tells you the temperature outside. You don't walk outside and say, it's kind of warm out. I should not wear a sweater today. It's chilly. I think I'll wear a sweater. It's like, my cell phone says to wear a sweater. I'm going to wear a sweater, you know.
Yeah.
Right. We're being taught what to think, not how to think. It's tiny little increments, but some of these children today will do something like, if they're following, you know, even adults will do it, unfortunately. They're following a GPS. It says turn right, even though it says, you know, road closed, bridge out. They'll turn right, drive off right off the bridge into the river and say, well, but my GPS told me to go that way. You know, and these are real examples. I don't even have to make that up. It's
You're
scary.
highlighting a very good point. Just how we, if we allow ourselves, we can just be directed. Our lives can be just totally manipulated, and we have to, for our own sake, our own creativity, our own understanding, have to try and see the
We have
world
to
for
question
ourselves.
everything and learn how to think for ourselves.
Yeah.
But so I know it's a different but like subject. What do you feel, or what have you learned about the Giza pyramid, or more to the complex, about how what was told to you in the tomb theory and what you've learned not to be as true, or a factor, funky fixture, situation about the Giza pyramid that you'd like to point out? Because I know you've looked to some degree, so I'd like to, if you have some kernel of knowledge that I don't have, I'd like to add it to my kernels.
Yes, I think, as I said before, I think as we all know, given this image of I grew up with this image of the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, as a tomb for the pharaoh. But when I had the opportunity a few times to go inside the pyramid, it's such a complicated, complex building. It's just so incredible. But the thing it taps into your interests and what you've been talking about is there's the subterranean chamber beneath the pyramid, and you go down there, and there's a big room underneath the pyramid, about 30 meters beneath, and there's been a well or something that goes even further down, and then there's this conduit thing that goes off at an angle of the same sort of angle of the slope, about 45 degrees, maybe
it goes
less.
down and then goes up.
Well, it goes down, yeah, from this chamber, it goes down. It's like this. It's about the size of about. Well, I was able to crawl down it, and when I got to the end, I was just able to turn around at the bottom and sit there for maybe about half an hour, just sitting in this thing with about those multi-tons worth of pyramids sat above me, and hoping there wasn't going to be an earthquake or anything. And I sat in this thing, this little tunnel, and it was just incredible. So that experience just highlighted this is not something to do with this is not, it was used by pharaohs as a tomb, but it was not the original purpose. It wasn't built originally for that.
I don't think, honestly, up until prior to 0800, when we broke into it, I don't think anybody had been in there for tens of thousands of years. But when you were in that one section, did you notice the wall? If the main conduit was here, and you were sitting there, and you had going up to the what they called the grotto, which is something which we were discussing before you came on here, how now there's this discovery of a hypothetical new void in there, and they're going to be sending this Zeppelin in there. I would love for them to send that little Zeppelin up that shaft and actually get good pictures of the grotto. They're spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on a hypothetical thing, when they actually have real pieces they could be taking pictures of using the exact same technology with no damage required. But they won't do that, because it'll point out how it's a machine and not a tomb. But reading, did you notice when you were climbing down and working in there, how about every 60 feet there was a break in the wall, how it looked like it was molded in sections, like about the size of 40-foot containers?
Yes, and there were sort of different heights to the slope as you went down. There would be slightly different heights. But to be honest, my last time I was there was a few years ago now. But I would say anybody like yourself, anybody can get off, can have an opportunity to get in there, will completely change their mind about this whole thing we're talking about. It's just a nonsense to think that what they say the pyramids were built for. It's amazing, incredible structure. It's an incredible structure, and it survived. I mean, actually survived a massive tsunami, massive earthquakes, and so on. When this meteorite struck about 10,500 years ago, that it's all been well documented. But it survived, and I think there's probably not far away, there are other pyramids and other structures not that far beneath as the silt was washed across and buried lots of other buildings and so on. I still think we'll be able to find some structures intact that we'll be able to look at forensically without just the old style, as you were saying earlier, guys that could afford to go, like the aristocrats back in the last century. They had the money to go and dig and so on, but they had no idea about preserving evidence or looking after information. So I think
at the time
I think that will happen. We'll find, we will discover things. Sorry?
Go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I'm just saying we will discover new things that will if we handle them properly, we get proper people looking at them and not people just trying to destroy evidence, proper people trying to handle the evidence properly. We're going to find out, we're going to find some really interesting things going along, which I think will fit into what we've been saying, this, and we're already seeing it now, we're already talking about the Egyptian pyramids being much older than the 4,500 years. Some people are now talking about them being 7,000, maybe 9,000. I hear some people now talking about coming out to the time scale I'm talking about, 12, 13,000 years. But until I can get somebody to produce a computer-generated program that can show us how, say, a Silbury Hill or a pyramid can deteriorate, the material can deteriorate over a period of thousands of years, then we just have to guess again. We have to speculate. But it's good to speculate. I think it's quite intriguing how to...
At least it's being talked about, which is much more than's really happening, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? This may not be quite where you want it to be because you know it's some kind of ancient structure pyramid, but at least we're talking about it, which is more than they're doing. You must be so disappointed in the Historical Society.
I am, and the fact that they keep well, this is the thing, Karen, is that because now they're starting to say things which are completely stupid, because they're trying to support their theory. And I had one guy, and I've got his name as a professor, and I'm talking about Stonehenge, and I said at one of his talks, this is maybe a few years ago now, I said, well, there doesn't seem to be evidence of number of people around at the time to build Stonehenge at the time you said. And then he started to make, then I think a few weeks later in the Telegraph, there's a story about how people travel from all over Britain, from the Highlands of Scotland and all the rest of it, to build this Stonehenge. I mean, it's just nonsense. I mean, you're talking about forested areas, you're talking about clans and warfares, and these people weren't civilized. If you're talking about that particular time of you're talking about moving out the Stone Age and into the Bronze Age, the Neolithic period, is that point that the establishment archaeologists say that Stonehenge was built. So to come up with this preposterous idea that they came from all over Britain to build Stonehenge, it just starts to make their credibility, it starts to damage their credibility. And I think as time goes on, their credibility will become totally destroyed, because there's things that come out with, like Silbury Hill, how it was built and so on, is just, I don't want to go into it because it's all well documented and people have read the information, but yeah, and
what it is, there's probably a lot more pyramids. They've been destroyed. A lot of them seem to be destroyed, and churches were built on them. There were churches built on the top of the bases of the pyramids.
There's a few little pyramids in a place called Inverurie in Scotland, near Aberdeen, a place called Inverurie, and they're in a churchyard. They're next to a church, and they're smaller than Silbury Hill, but they've been small pyramids. And again, as I said before, around that area there are 99 stone circles in Aberdeenshire. So for some reason that was a hot spot back in the day. And again, they found something, I forgot where it's now, I think a place called Bankery. They found something which they again dated recently, which they had dated to about 11,000 years old. So where you've got new archaeologists looking at new evidence, it's beginning to become more accurate. If you get new archaeologists looking at old evidence, they still try to keep to the established views, really. It's very difficult for someone, a professor, to then criticize his teacher who taught him what he's told about Stonehenge, to then criticize him. So it's interesting.
I'm just so shocked because, I've been to Silbury, I've been to Avebury, I love Avebury. I've been to the Long Barrows, I've been to all that, and never would I have said that that's what it is. But it's obvious now. You thought it collapsed, but then Angel said that that's not true. But what's the significance of Silbury Hill then? Because there is a significance, being one of the oldest.
Well, as I said, the significance is it's just coming back to what we're talking about in terms of manipulation and your ideas and so on, is that you're told it's a mound of chalk and everybody says, oh, it's a mound of chalk. And if I talk to 99 people out of 100 say Silbury Hill, they'll say, oh, it's the largest man-made mound in Europe. If I say, well, I've now got bits of evidence to show that it probably could have been something else rather than a mound of chalk, they then start to listen and start thinking, oh yeah, right, okay, that's interesting. So it's just a point there, if you like, a stake in the ground where we're actually starting to contradict what we're being told. And nobody has yet, from the establishment, has turned around, from English Heritage or wherever, has turned around and said to me, look, John, that's what you're saying is nonsense, because they know I was with them. I was inside the tunnel. I was there for weeks, months, picking up information, evidence, talking to the people, the Skanska guys who were involved digging the tunnels, digging into the tunnels and so on. And I collected a massive information. I've got a lot of film on it and all the rest of it, which is in my archives, which probably not many people have seen. But I
might be able to tell you something else as well, like what they've said about Avebury is that this was a moat, electrical arcing that happened on the land, which obviously has an energy point, and then they've put the stones around that bit. And I did think for a little bit that maybe Silbury Hill, if it was a mound, was then the earth from the moats. But that's not true.
Yeah, I think somebody mentioned earlier about Peru, the Nasdaq lines and so on, is that what you can see with Silbury Hill, Avebury and so on, is that these are structures that, with big white circles in the stone structure, they were things that were seen clearly from the sky. And if you look at all these, like Stonehenge and all these places, they're kind of they're amazing to be seen from above, and we obviously don't. Establishment won't recognise or suggest that that people were actually flying around at that time. But even the concept we have in Wiltshire of having white horses on hills and so on, that's obviously come in our unconscious memory from some.
Well, I tell you what, Angel would agree with you in some way, because Angel, we were talking about this last week when you thought that some of those pyramid things, or these things, were actually just like dockings where people were coming on, landing there and getting off.
Well, the one in South America, I do believe that was docked, and you can look at it the way the front of it is faced and the back of it is open. However, I'd say that 90% of what we call monolithic structures are waypoints to be read from altitude. And I do believe that they had travel, maybe not flight like an airplane, but I do believe they had the knowledge of electricity and how to separate water into its respective gases. And hydrogen is a very easy way to travel. In fact, we used it up until we blew up the Hindenburg. And I'll suggest that was intentional, especially the way that it was painted and burnt, that there was more to it. That's a whole nother conspiracy theory for another day. But we did use hydrogen ourselves to travel for several decades before we decided to go to the more expensive helium and then to the much easier flight. So there's nothing to say that these people didn't just have hot air balloons, but I do believe they had the knowledge of hydrogen. And if you had time, I could, since you've been in the structure, you can trust me much easier than people who've never been there and have to take my word for some of the configuration, because I don't have all the pictures that I wish I did. But either way, to show you how not only the Giza pyramid complex functioned, but the communication is within it. When people say there's no writing, there's writing all over it. But people don't understand that these people spoke in relational information and numbers, mathematics, because math transcends any language. It'll transcend any time.
Yeah, absolutely right.
And up until, I'd say, this last half century, people didn't have the knowledge of electricity. We didn't have little toys like this that I could sit here and make electricity out of nothing. The average person was a farmer, blacksmith, tannery. Electricity was not used because they didn't have machines. Everything was done by hand. So somebody could have been standing in front of a generator and they would not have known it. perfect examples, the Baghdad battery. That's just one. There are several other batteries found, not just the one in Baghdad. These guys, people had them, put them in museums, called them flower pots, had several of them on display. And then soon as they figured out that it was a battery, into the basement, out of sight, out of mind.
Mm.
They don't want to admit that they had the knowledge of electricity prior to Faraday playing with his glass rods and Benjamin Franklin hypothetically flying a key, that if he had done the experiment they said that he had done, he'd be dead.
Yeah. You touched on Darwinism a little while back, and just what you've been saying. We haven't evolved. We've always been clever. If you go back to Leonardo da Vinci's time and before, we've always been some amazing inventions, amazing things that have been done, which we've forgotten.
Yeah, I've talked to Matthew.
Central heating in Britain. Sorry.
I was talking to Matthew before you got on, because you were having trouble getting on, about that, how we, in the past, according to the Bible, which I do believe a good percentage of it, at least the Old Testament, that we lived a lot longer. Our lifespans were longer because we lived a lot healthier. And we were able to gain more knowledge and information, and then we would have a better application. Now we are, unfortunately, improperly indoctrinated, given false information from the get-go, and our lives are cut short because we like our soft drinks and, you know, plastic shoes and a lot of other unhealthy things. But
we're told to take lots of tablets, and
that too,
which we don't need.
And the ones that do get on the right trail, I'll point out people like Stan Myers, and even the diesel. Even the guy who invented the diesel engine, his idea was poo-pooed. He was called an idiot, never work, mysteriously fell off a boat. The army picked up his diesel engines, put them to use, and didn't have to pay any royalties. But that's a side issue. Happened to happen that way. Poor diesel family not getting their money, even though their name is used every day. But it is. I could go on about how any disruptive technology is squashed because they don't want the average person living alone on a farm, growing their own things, generating their own electricity through one of many ways to generate free electricity. And I would point out that the knowledge of free electricity has been around for a long time, but up until just recently, we didn't have a way to utilize what I refer to as micro amounts of electricity. Up until just recently, we didn't have a computer that could last several hours on one battery and could get stuff done. We needed to have like a small little generating plant and an air conditioner and a dehumidifier just to have a computer running. The average person didn't have that technology, and it is so where now we can get by with a little bit of electricity if we utilize it. There are ways to do refrigeration with much less energy than we use using a compressor in Freon or whatever the gas they use nowadays. There are other ways to do things, but we have been commercialized into doing the most inefficient way because it was the easiest or quickest way. And if we more utilize natural means of doing things, efficient and independent, but then we wouldn't be as controlled. And they can't have free-thinking individuals. They need to have non-free-thinking, controlled consumers. And that is, as long as you stick with that mindset that you are born to be a consumer, you need to feed into the system, then you'll be happy. If you try to go off the farm and try to be independent, off grid, that's where you start to pick up flack.
Yeah, it's all very interesting. Yeah. Sorry, Karen, you okay?
Oh, I was just listening in there to Angel. Angel comes on with artists, the 5. and they do pyramids and ancient structures. So we talk about these things quite a lot. Artists or Angel go into things and show pictures, and so they talk about this quite a lot.
I think seeing is believing. I could say something and you'll get one mental picture, and then I can show you a actual picture and you'll say, but wait, that's not what you told me. I see something else. Well, I don't want you to see the something else. I want you to see what I told you. And as long as you can, I warp you into only seeing what I told you. And one question I want to ask, you were in the Great Giza Pyramid. You went up to the top, I'm assuming. There's a shaft that they like to call the Thieves' Tunnel off of the antechamber that goes would be east to west into the wall. Were you up there at one point? It was a fenced off thing. At one point it was a wooden door. When you were there, what was it like, and were you able to peer behind the gate?
Yeah, on that particular occasion, I read a lot about it, and I had been up a previous time where I could get in, and it was amazing the amount of graffiti and stuff that was all up there. But the last time I went, I was more focused on the main chamber, obviously, and it's just difficult to explain. But certainly more to do with the subterranean chamber was the focus side of it, because I was coming more to the idea that these things are produced for generating life, there's kind of life, because they're producing energies, and they're all sorts of different forms of energies. And how were they using this energy? What were they doing with this energy? Apart from, obviously, they were using it, converting it into seismic signals, they're converting it into all sorts of things. But what were they actually?
There were
such a complicated structure, and these things. You go into the roof of this just massive blocks of granite above. How they got them into place, and it's just so.
Well, I'll suggest to you that a good percentage of the rock that you see within the structure is fabricated / poured, not quarantined and migrated. And this has come up again, luckily, in the past, I'd say 2-3 decades. I can say 3 now because it started in the 90s. We started with the first one was when we got the magnetic electron microscope, and they took fragments of some of the rock to try to put them in there to try to tell what direction the fine molecular particles were orientated within the rock, so they could tell the orientation of the rock at the time it was formed, and then back engineer what quarry it came from, and even say, oh, look, it came from that spot right there because we can tell the shape, that's where it came from. But they gave up on that because they couldn't get a stagnant reading. They didn't understand why yet. Then in the mid-2000s, just after we came out with the auto tune and the technology that they used for ground penetrating and looking for oil, where they bounce sound or energy down into the ground, and when they get it back, auto tune to hear and tell which, oh, that sounds like crystal, that sounds like oil, that sounds like water, that sound, and they could tell the minerals based on the frequencies it projected back. They used the exact same technology on some of the rock again of the pyramid, and they came back finding out it was infused with water. Scratched their heads, walked away, didn't go anywhere with that because it didn't make any sense, because natural rock, number one, when formed in the bowels of the earth, is done under great heat and great pressure. So it shouldn't have any water. And the fine molecular particles, since it takes hundreds of years to cure, would have orientated to true north because nature pulls it in that direction. And then just in the last half decade, we used X-ray to do the same thing on some of the rock, and we found out it had air bubbles. All 3 of these factors tells you that these rocks were fabricated, poured, and cured in a matter of days or weeks, as opposed to years. They had air bubbles. They were infused with water, like limestone and when you mix lime and concrete today, and your cement that you walk on is infused with water. So these are things that tell you that at least the rocks they tested in the Great Giza Pyramid were fabricated. These are things they don't want to teach you in school, because this goes to show that they had a technology that we didn't have up until, we started with brick and mortar, adobe block, and then we worked on to concrete and cement. And now we got to the point where there's a place in France called the Geopolymer Institute, and they have actually reverse engineered some of the rocks, because there's like several of them used in the Great Giza Pyramid, and they're using a mass spectrometer type device to pull the elements out of the rock to actually tell exactly what is in there, what exact pieces. And the same way we can do with anything else. You burn it off, and as things come off, they tell what frequency it is. And it's very all scientific-y and stuff and gets deep, but it is a real science, and they can actually do it. And they know that it was, they actually have refabricated some of the rock, and when shown to people, they can't tell the difference between it and the rock from the Giza Pyramid, or it and fake rock, because our scientists aren't really taught how to look for fake rock, because up until we started making fake rock ourselves, fake rock didn't exist. Just like if somebody was to look at a battery sitting in a museum, up until we learned what a battery was, it was a cool looking vase. And then all of a sudden we learned what a battery was, into the basement, out of sight, out of mind. But we've been looking at it with a biased eye of, it was a tomb and it was quarried and they were pulled in this way and that way. And as long as we're kept on the deception of how was it built, and we are biased with the already preconceived idea that it was built as a tomb, as long as we stay on that farm, we're all happy. But when we look at, instead of how was it built, why was it built, and not accepting that it was a tomb, then that's where we get flack. So
just a couple of things to say. I would totally agree with you that, say, the stones at Avebury are made, they're concrete. There's lots of bubbles in them, and I would say definitely there's something strange about the stones at Avebury. And maybe that's happened at Stonehenge, where they pour a mix into a block of a wooden box, and then they remove the wooden box, and you've got the stone in place. But my view of in the King's Chamber in Egypt, that was granite. That wasn't, my humble opinion, that wasn't pre-made stone or concrete. That was solid block of granite. Now again, maybe they knew how to make that. So your point is interesting. I looked at that and said, "Oh, that's a solid block of granite." But yeah, maybe they had the technology to make a block in place, put a block in place, and maybe that explains why they get the very fine gaps between the stones. It's an intriguing thing. It's intriguing what you say. But that's a theory that's been mentioned for a while now, that a lot of the stones have been poured into wooden crates, if you like, and then removed to leave you with a stone, which is just what you've said, basically, just basically confirming.
Yeah, well,
can I just say one thing before you talk? Everybody's noticed that your scarf is a snake.
Yeah, it's an organic scarf.
Yeah.
It's a ball python.
Right.
This one's name is CMOS.
Right.
Semi-metal oxide.
Hope it doesn't get too friendly.
Oh, I've had them for 2 decades, three now, since 2000. I say it is 2 decades.
Wow. How long do they live for?
They say up to 30 years plus. I mean, honestly, I think if I fed them properly, they would last forever. Reptiles, to my understanding, can last a really long time. And almost every animal eventually dies out of a lack of nutrition of some type, and or a traumatic event, cut, stab, something like that. But
kind of shock.
Otherwise, it's kind of hard to die of.
Yeah, Angel, that's not going to start squeezing your neck, is it? That's not going. The snake's not going to start squeezing you. We've got to sit here and watch that.
Very good television now. Very good view.
It's not strong enough to overpower me. I've got a fork right here, and I'm not afraid to use it.
Oh, I feel happier now. That's good.
Well, it's not strong yet, Angel, so be aware.
I had a 12-foot Burmese python, and it was strong enough where I'd be like, stop, you know. But I had to get rid of her. She was a little bit too big.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have a big enough place to keep her, so I gave her to somebody who had a farm and just let her roam around on his back lot. And she was very happy. She lived outside Awesomes.
Wow.
Yeah. And also, is it keeping your neck warm right now?
It is.
Okay.
She wanted to be on the hangout. Can I just stop you for just 1 second? Jay, what do pyramids mean for you? Because he's into syncreticity.
Wow. Well, pyramids to me mean a lot. They mean fire and passion. The tetrahedron. I teach that in my dance classes, that we have to apply nature. The body is a rocket ship designed to go to the fifth element of ether, which I'll explain what I do in University of Iowa, where the Illuminati was started by Adam Weishaupt. In the university, I'm grateful that I can teach the dance method that I do, because it undoes mind control. Because the Darwinism stuff is exactly why we're here today. We don't go outside and compare dance to a leaf or wind. So what I do is this. There are 5 major positions in ballet. There are 5 elements and 5 geometric shapes. The 5th element is the dodecahedron. So in ballet, when we're spinning, we're holding the ball of ballet, or the ball of E, T, estrogen etymology, which is the goddess, which is what Benjamin Franklin's Hellfire Society is dedicated to Lucifer, Venus. When she was being born, she created hell on earth, and hell hath no fury, like a woman scorned. And these Freemasons use the sacred feminine energy and her serpentine sexual symbols. Hence, nun means snake in Hebrew. It relates to all these things, and fish. It's interesting how we miss it. Nun is the 14th letter in the Semitic abjads. Alphabet, 4 and 1 is 5, pent. So when the snake appeared, I was like, yes, because I want to get into serpents. I believe that we're dealing with something that moves and is infiltrating us with a dance, and it's infiltrating our consciousness, specifically using the elements. I think it's interesting that you said that your snake, when it loses nutrients, it dies. Now, I find it interesting that we're living in a world full of people who have to sail around a lot and steal minerals. They use astrology. They use lights, cameras, and action. They use the earth, water, air, fire, and ethers against the body. Once again, it's very important to, I think, look at what we can do with art and performing, because what's happening is these are all rituals. Like when someone goes to the pyramid and says, hey, I think it's that, and they have a bunch of people who are Freemasons who get together and organize and change the truth, then now we have a ritual, we have a movement. So when I'm a dancer, I teach that everyone can create a movement. Om, the Hindu word of God, is in movement. So when we're moving, we're vibrating side by side, like the number 11, the pillars of Freemasonry. It's all of us have to vibrate. So when we're thinking about a tetrahedron, we have metal array pyramids in our brain. And I'm very fascinated by the idea that when they were built, for whatever reason, the brain has so many abilities in it, has so much information. All the computers come from the brain. The Googling, all of this stuff comes from our brain. Hence, we have interesting names that can debunk Darwinism. My thalamus means receiver of the flower, hence the lotus flower crown chakra, right? Medulla means pith of plants. Cortex is bark of tree. Your spine means a thorn. Druid, people of the oak. We are all people of the oak. Highly intelligent beings that walk upright, not on all fours like pumas do, which are beautiful, but they're cheating us with the cheetah mentality. So we get dumbed down to monkey people. Nothing wrong with monkeys, because Mon is the moon. These are creatures that are sentient. So when you go to university, you notice that a lot of these students are given data. Their sciences are given in very generic ways. They're not making any personal connections to the elements they're studying. So by the time they get to me, they get a chance to not repress the first element of air. Very important thing to share about human existence today. In every dance studio I teach at, when I simply ask people to breathe in, they get awkward and they hold their breath and look at me like they're confused. That is a bad sign. How do we even get the information to learn if we're afraid to breathe in our octahedron, our octopus? The goddess is air. Hence in the ballet, we have les sylphides, which means spirit. Spiritus in Latin means breath. So when you are dancing and you are connected to your serpent, con means serpent, connected, you have a bicep is 2, tricep is 3, 2 and 3 is 5. You're a moving serpent. So when I'm thinking of information about geometry specifically, it's very personal to me because geometry comes from Gaia, for the earth, geo. All these things are related to nature and a natural sense of, at least now my brain's in a place where if I see a geometric shape, add something to what you're saying as opposed to, yeah, that was something that's very ancient and it's the Egyptians and they have rituals around it. There's more to that, like the bricks that built those pyramids. Your abdominal muscles make cubes. Solomon's temple is your body. Your six-pack are the cubes that it took to build the pyramid. That, right? We have circular nipples. It takes a square and a triangle to make the circle of life. We are artistic drawings. So when you're working out, you don't have to work out to get buff. You have to work out to get geometric, to show how you can speak with these shapes. So not to, blah, blah too long because I don't want to take the panel time, but I appreciate, sorry, your name, sir, again? The gentleman, from
John.
I think you're from England?
John Cowie. Yeah, John from
John
England.
Cowie?
Well,
From
you're
England,
Scottish,
yes.
aren't you?
Scottish. Beautiful.
Down Scottish
Yeah, no, I just
to
wanted to say, I appreciate it. I danced in Glasgow and Northern Ballet Theatre in England,
Oh, wow.
and Sadler's Wells, and I have a real love for England and the Scots. So much history with Scotland.
Excellent.
very quickly. We've
So
got
thank you.
it in our heads, haven't we?
Thank you.
Jay?
Yeah, we do. We have the geometry in our heads, the shape and structure. And so just to sort of add to the Medullary pyramids, if you look it up, if you look at the design, there's a gentleman named Fritz Springmeier. He talks about the Illuminati and mind control. Fritz Springmeier, really good information. Because in this information, he speaks about the brain and how it's like a computer. And they use these tetrahedron, they use these little symbols to store information and to decompartmentalize the human brain into 1,000 trillion million different computers, each that reflect themselves. The brain has a lot of power. And it's just, I can see now why the mind control, especially the confusion with Darwinism, getting us to be, apes, yet the planet of the apes. I have apes and apps are the same word. So I'm in my app all day. I'm a robot. I'm the Walking Dead. Dexter, they're making someone who kills someone seem like you should have compassion for someone who sheds blood. That's Mars, the god of war, the blood sacrifice of Mars. This is all astrology for sure. And yeah, it's important to get to nature and look at the body, what it means. But I'm gonna leave it open now. Thank you for letting me share.
Oh, there you go. You got another fan now.
Brilliant.
It's many videos like that, putting all the symbols, the words together, and it's his forte, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's important to put the body first. We have the sagittal plane and we have the coronal plane. Sagittal is Sagittarius. Coronal is Corona. Chronos, that's Saturn. The dance. So whatever is infiltrating us knows how we move. It knows geometry, and it's very clever. And it can photocopy. It can do fax machines. It can do apps. It can apply itself. But this is what I learned is really funny. They come from the underworld, We see chakras in the earth. I'm into the nagas and the serpents, and there are good and bad ones. And so when they come up here, it's like there's this sort of strange sort of like, wow, I'm making connections to these reptiles. Like we have the viper has a triangular shaped head, constellation, and we have the Illuminati with the all-seeing eye in my tetrahedron trying to get into my brain, right? And then we have this viper that can strike you and you won't die right away. You get slowly weak. This is how I know we're dealing with something very intelligent that relates very closely to our kundalini. So you're getting sick slowly. The viper waits until you're weak and then it kills you. Now, what kind of behavior today are we seeing with medication and like medicines and slowly body, sodium fluoride, the education system slowly making it seem okay, but your child is getting more and slowly more depressed and dumbed down until finally they give up and either kill themselves. I see the emails, and my heart goes out because I know how it is. If you don't get the grade, the alpha and omega grade, omega-3 fatty acids, fatty, pata is Jupiter, your pH is Jupiter, it's in your body. He's meant to be there and she to help you, right? But we don't teach the nature of geometry and how the body fits in with it. We have a cuboid in our foot. We're walking on the cube, but we're wearing sneakers. Now, snake relates to the word sneak in etymology. So who are these naga serpents that have good and bad vibes? Do I have the ability to have these good and bad vibes in my body? And when I saw angel serpent, I was like, okay, this is a sign from the angels for me to speak a little bit on my research concerning serpents. The python can eat something and it stays in the body for a long period of time. It can digest slowly, apparently. Interestingly enough, we are eating meat and it takes quite a long time to digest that. Now, I'm not battling anyone who eats meat. I used to eat it. It's not an attack. But we know that the stomach of the human body is not designed necessarily to break down heavy, like cows. It clogs the arteries, and then it sits in your body for apparently 7 days. I mean, not to creep anyone out. I'm just saying, once again, it's an interesting pattern that I'm noticing. And I don't know what demons are. You see, we don't do rituals. And I wanted to sort of put this out to a lot of people who are in the research movement. Like, we have to find a way to do rituals. What I mean by that is this. Using our talents, being in one room, in the room together, and having like a mantra vibe, having this sort of sense of being connected. Because people like Darwin, Benjamin Franklin, they were Freemasons and they did rituals. They were killing and drinking, blood, and they were doing pedophilia to harness the child's energy, the chi, the Christ, anagram for Christ. Why? And then they come out, oh, I found electricity. I'm the elite. In the word elite hides eat. They like to eat. What do reptiles like to do? They can eat big things. So I think very intelligent that comes from somewhere else, and it needs us to put our heads together in a ritualistic manner to repel it. Because we have that plane of inertia in our bodies. We can push things away. Hence your Asian, your Tai Chi men who know how to use the third eye for their students just from putting their head towards them. How? You know what I mean? Containing the energy. Pelvis means a container. I have to contain myself. Oh, I have a degree, but can I contain my behavior? Can I contain my ignorance? Can I grade your paper without impulse? Can I know that my syllabus is balanced? Syllabus, the bull, that my torus field is balanced with your torus field? Or am I creating you stress in school that now you are on medication, foods, and I'm telling you to better yourself and I'm giving you Taco Bell? Now you go to the hospital because you're depressed and you have more fried chicken in your hospital and Pepsi. Ridiculous. And you're probably in there for diabetes. Diana, the goddess, dielectric. She splits things into two. This is astrology. This is the use of nature against us. This is our time. I believe this is our time to give information. This is the information age. And we're going to pass it on to the next beings that will then be the spiritual ritualistic age, where they will physically do it. I don't know if it'll happen in this time where we'll all come together and like the chanting. I really believe in it. It's science. The words are chemistry. The oming and the Hare Krishnaing and the times of the month where the sun and the moon and what's going on with the planets and how they're aligning. That, you know, we go to a chiropractor to get alignment, right? Your spine has 33 bones in it. And so the sun always 33rd degrees. If those spines are all aligned together and they're vibrating with information and we're creating a movement, right? Or a performance, this truth movement will be a dance. It's a movement. It needs to be a performance. Like, boom, we have all this power. We go outside, do it somewhere at a certain time of day, certain ritualistic energies, and we create something. Because I'll tell you something. Whatever this thing is, it has a weakness. We have to deplete it of its nutrients. When a viper stabs its victim with venom, it loses its power. That's its Christ, its sexual energy. Hence why human beings have pornography. Right? To drain us. So this is an interesting connection with what it can be used for and how important it is to a certain being. You know what I mean? So yeah, I feel like a lot of these points will always take me to a place where I'm going to talk about nature and the body right away. Because the body came first before the pyramid. So I'm saying like, phalanges means a military division. Phalanges is a bone. My bone means the military. Marinate on that. It's a fact. Why? So before we have Trojans, or anyone who knew how to fight, someone is telling me that my bone and that my tibia means a flute. Wow. And then Shiva has a fontanelle, and then dolphins have blowholes, and I have a hippocampus seahorse in my brain. Whoa, wait a minute, Mr. J. When I stare at the sun, I see little rings coming out. Echoes. What do dolphins do? They echo. They send their voices out and it bounces off to understand what the things are. So if we have a seahorse hippocampus in our brains, I'm wondering who we should be communicating with. Free Willy? Finding Nemo? Right? Christopher Columbus and the sailors. Pleiades means to sail. Venus. Right? They're in our heads. They're in our fountain of L. And we're supposed to be having an awakening. We're supposed to be elevating as we get older and communicating with the fish. I think that there's an energy these whales and dolphins have that these demons will not like, because I believe they are specifically blocking our relationship with that creature. I'll get into that more in another panel because I don't want to go too long. But yeah, please, someone come in, and if you want to jump in, I actually would love to hear more, Angel, from you about your experience with your snakes and their behavior, because I am grateful that you have those because I don't know much about them. So if you could please let me know more, I'd love that.
Sure. I got snakes because they're the least. You don't have to take them out for walks. They don't bark at night. They don't wet the floor. And for a while I was traveling, so I was gone for several weeks at a time. And as long as I left them with a bucket of water, they'd still be alive when I got back. And you are right that they take like sometimes a week, 2-3 weeks to digest their food. I can feed them one time, and I know when they poop because I can find it. So and they do take a while to digest. And in fact, if I sit here and rub my fingers along them, there are times I can find where the rat is inside the body, depending on how long ago I fed them and what the scenario is. But I don't know, they're cold-blooded. I found out once very expensively that they're not the smartest animals on the planet. I used to use a underground heater that I had them in a glass fish tank. Right now they're in an open air mesh tank, but I had them in a glass fish tank, and I had a heater taped to the bottom of the glass. And since they're cold-blooded, they would sit over the heater, and they had rubbed away at the dirt that was on the bottom of the tank and were actually right up against the glass. And where it was cooking his belly. In fact, it was this one right here. Probably can't see it anymore. Yeah, you can. Well, I'd have to get right up in front of the camera, but his belly has scarring on it. And then since they're cold-blooded, when they feel pain and stuff like that, they go to wherever there's heat, and they're not smart enough to know that it's burning them, because in nature, you know, there's not blacktop. They're not hanging around a tarmac where they would actually burn themselves. They would come across a rock that's actually been baking in the sun. They can get on top of it, and since their body is no longer cut, you know, letting the sunlight go through, it's not going to sit there and cook them. It may burn them initially, but it's not going to sit there and burn them overnight. Anyway, I let him cook himself for a good long while, and I took him into the vet, and the vet says, you know, you must have an underground heater. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, he's been cooking himself for like the past month, and you know, he's been basically had fried snake. And so that's how I found out they weren't the smartest animals in the world. But other than that, they're very simple. I've had them. I have 4 of them, and I've had them all for more than a decade, and I think they're just docile, quiet. I just, you know, I like them because I just enjoy nature. They don't do anything special. They don't wake me up in the morning or anything like that. I do think they know me over other people just based on a scent that they know is a comfort scent as opposed to a fearful scent. They know I'm not going to smack them around or throw them against a wall or something. But I don't think it's not like a dog where they know when I'm home and want to play ball or anything like that. In fact, I don't think they want to play at all. They just crawl around, and they really just hang on me because I'm warm, and they're cold-blooded. So that's about all I can think of. Any other questions? Oh, I give them water and I give them food. And like I said, I have them in an open air tank, and they're just snakes.
You gave me actually sort of an idea, because you sort of maybe helped me solidify a theory that I had about these demons, I call them, or nagas in Hindu, these dark serpents. Like you were saying that they weren't very smart, and the fire thing. Well, we have pirates known to be men of fire. Like, I know that these entities like to stand in place of the sun. The sun is a symbol of heat. Now, when you look at the feet of this deity for the world called Loka, these nagas are in the feet of Capricorn, where the land of Saturn is. Saturn is a different kind of light, provides different energy, very complex orb of energy, really complicated. And if it's in your birth chart in a certain way, it can cause a lot of issues. It's actually a fact. These things do play a role, like the energies of the angels, as you call them. So I'm interested to see, like, I think this entity has a bad time with fire. They don't know how to do the Lucifer dance, because we are the lights. The human beings are the solar plexuses in our bodies, shows us that we actually are, in my opinion, from my theory on this, is that we are the bodies of light that are designed to ascend. They are bodies of energy that are designed to descend. Hence why everything is material, everything is corporate, everything is organized, everything is, you go to work, you don't go outside. You sleep with your wife, you make a baby, you have children, you don't care if you like your children. You're just programmed, you have a family anniversary, you're talking about things that don't matter. It's all about the job, makes us happy, job, which is Job, who suffered for a certain reason. Bottom line is faith. And I think it's interesting what you just said about them not being very intelligent with heat. So there might be something there for me. I'm actually really, I'm excited. And I'm also interested in, you know, Rick James had a song called Cold Blooded. Okay. Now these songs, it's not a coincidence. And he had a little sidekick, Tina Marie, singer, beautiful voice. But Tina, Retina, means to rotate, and women rock and roll with the Taurus bull. Tina Marie, the famous singer, Mare for water. And they use the elements in music. It literally is, I shit you not, musical science. Just from those two names, not a coincidence. And the song and the vibration, it shifts consciousness. So your mental pyramids, they're electric. So these people know what they're doing. They know the brain. They know the shape of your brain, the names of your brain. They know you're a druid. They know you're a reptile. You have a reptilian brain. They know you're a tree. They know you have a solar plexus. They gave you Christianity, you know, Jesus and the sun. Now, I'm not hating on organized religions, but some of those have an agenda that aren't healthy. And if I don't know that I have a solar plexus, that I am a being of light atomically, physically, then it might be hard for me to really understand what these religions mean, you know? Elements will save the day. And this is a panel full of gentlemen who study the elements, I believe, very well. I'm gonna leave it open.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah. Slightly off topic to pyramids a little bit, but thank you very much. I hope you found that very interesting, John.
I did. Yes, it's always intriguing and interesting just talking and hanging out as we do with other people, get other ideas, and yeah, fascinating. Very, very interesting conversations. And yeah, we drifted away from pyramids, which is probably not a bad thing. It's good to get hear other subjects basically related. And well, that information that was given just a moment ago was just really, really incredible. The knowledge that he has.
Oh, Jay! Oh, well, we love Jay.
Fantastic. Well done. Brilliant.
Oh,
yeah.
There
Thank
you
you
go,
very
Jay.
much. Thank you very much. I just wanted to shout out that it's all because of Santos Bonacci's work. I don't know. It's funny. I mean, I have no undergraduate. I had a horrible experience in school, but then someone sent me a link of an individual, and then I found Santos through that journey. And then when I saw the way he presented stuff, as a dancer, I realized there's so much in dance that we don't appreciate. There's so much wisdom in the dance steps and in the names. And I thought to myself, wow, this is a good chance for me to like take this and actually use it to help people and simplify it in a way where they don't feel judged, you know? And the body, like it's all about anorexia in ballet. We know girls go through hell. That's the sacred feminine. You know, man decided to hate women. Now, I'm going to say this is actually interesting because I had an aha. Klondike means hammer water in Alaska, okay? Hammer water, Klondike. I had an aha moment like you would not believe this metaphor because someone got their feet nailed to a cross. Bam. Water, Loka is a Hindu body of water. That water is the Christ consciousness, your sexual fluids, whatever you, sweat, salt, all of that. You know what I'm saying? So we say Klondike, they call lesbians dykes. Now that was offensive. Oh, ouch. Actually, no. It means to nail something. Hammer water. This is the woman who nails. This is truth. This is the woman that sticks it to you. Better be careful. Athena is the spear shaker. Mount Meru, hence your cross and the waters. And then here are all these earthly creatures dancing on it. Right? So these are the things that I think can help because women have been treated like shit for too many years. We need more female truthers for sure that can come out and shed light and help us because everything is from birth. Simple. You know what I mean? Like penis has Isis in it. When you piss, it's not nasty. It has Isis is in it. Uranus is in your urine. Uranus has uranium. What does that mean, right? Like, or we just sort of going into textbook, memorize it. He said it was a monkey. Oh, he made the atomic bomb, but he killed millions of Japanese people. Okay, he's a genius. Einstein, great, okay. But then he needed to go to Immanuel Velikovsky, Worlds in Collision, to get some astrology on his deathbed, which I'm researching. And people like Immanuel Velikovsky were damned for trying to show Venus. He was a scholar, a real scholar. I bless people like that. Okay, he believed the earth was a certain way, but so what? At least he provided me with the Bhagavad Gita, the Judaism version, the Sumerian. So I have to give thanks to these kinds of people. Alexander Hislop, the Book of Two Babylons. My gosh, Thomas H. Burgoyne, Astrology, Light of Egypt. It's not me. These books just hit me in certain ways. And so then when these gentlemen speak, if I don't understand necessarily the topic, even if it's politics, there's always a word or two that I can at least expand upon, and we can have a different conversation that still relies on the same thing. That's diversity. They think diversity here is hiring black people. We have diversity, got black people, but they don't know how to treat people. They brought me here as a monkey. You know how I got in this university? They wanted African Americans that have had careers. Okay, so I had a great dance career. Great, no undergraduate. I think it was an experiment. I don't know what's going on. So I auditioned to get into this university. I'm not hating. It's actually, you know, I'm lucky to be teaching there, right, in university. 3 of us of color auditioned together. 3 of us got in. Guess how many are left? Me. Why? Simple. We don't do our homework for the human feelings, right? We don't look at our right from wrong behavior. Do I know how to speak to these people? These people meaning if it's someone different from you, they had a different experience. The cultures are different. Yes, it's okay. Diversity means variety. Do you understand what the difference is? That's all. If you don't, you're gonna hurt someone's feelings. And if they have an ego, they're gonna get mad at you and they're gonna fight you. And so then it goes on and on. So my buddies are all gone because of a battle with the egos and people who believe the earth is spinning around. You know, we have Buddhists here who drink Jack Daniels. Nothing personal. I won't say names, but listen, it is what it is. You do what you do. You know what I'm saying? You do what you do. It's about being balanced and honest with the self. Like, so I'm just grateful to be expressing the energy. Because who else is going to do it, right? Like, people get their jobs and then all they want you to do is focus on a cover letter. I had another aha. Why is it called a cover letter? What does the dome do over the earth? It covers the earth as a breast. Bam, a breast. So when I'm writing my cover letter, I'm writing my ark, covenant. I'm writing the skull. I'm writing my kaput. They don't know stuff like that. All they care about is write my cover letter. Your grammar's good. You used italics. You became Italian, which is beautiful. Idol. Nothing wrong with that word. We're all idols. We're all statues that can move and shit. We don't see it. Atlas is a bone in our skull. Ask why. This dude held the damn world. And it's a bone that can debunk so much stuff. It's a bone. Someone said, okay, I'm gonna call that Atlas. It's by the skull. Oh, it's a coincidence. Hence science, hence the pyramids. They don't have spirit. They don't know the spirit world. So it's hard for a lot of scientists, not judging people at all. I'm just saying it's hard if you don't know astrology a bit and mythology and the metaphors, right? Or even etymology, to sort of say, hey, that image there, maybe it's a logo that we use today. They use Doritos in the pyramid, right? Everything's in a shape, right? Everything has a frame. The triangle is an instrument, the triangle, right? What's that about? That's a unique instrument. Doesn't get a lot of shine, does it? Triangle. Ding, ding, 3. We have triceps and concepts. Con is the serpent. Con is serpent. So we have to speak with the serpents. They built the pyramid. Simple, whatever that means to you. I don't know. That's science. I mean, those those waves that you're talking about, electricity, of course they're electric. The elite comes from the word El. Santos always talks about El. Corey, Hebrew word of God. They are electricians. When you look up El, you'll find a company called BHEL. Guess what it is? An electric company. Electric company is called Bell. So there's something happening with Back to the Future. Back to the Future? What's he doing with lightning and thunder and the rod in the temple? Vatican Church has a little rod and they have Jupiter hitting it. What the hell's that about, right? I mean, they have pyramids around in Rome too and shit. They know what they're doing. I don't know exactly because I wasn't there. It's not, but there's something about this pyramid shape. We even use it in school for your diet. You have your veggies, you eat this, and they put it in a pyramid. Scam. I wonder why. With science, they have to use science. So we have to get back to what science is so that we can repel them. Repel or propel. We are built to ascend. Why in ballet? At the bar, I start low and plie, the Pleiades in ballet, 7 sisters. And then in the end of class, grand allegro, I jump high. I've ascended. I've graduated to the ether, not to a person with a motorboard on your head, crushing your crown chakra of consciousness, blocking your fountain L, your blowhole of love, goddess. You're a monkey with a PhD. It's crazy. Crazy. And we're not that. Monkeys are beautiful, but you know, we all have to learn how to dance again. We have to get out of our seats and make sure we move around a little bit. See, everyone is a dancer, and when you move, that's a ritual. See, rituals need a movement. See, movement is not owned by anyone. It's not owned by a corporation. Anything with the INC, that's all papacy. That's all corporate Roman stuff. That's magic, y'all. No one owns a movement. No one owns a corporation. Your body's a corpse. You are the corporation. You own your own thing. They only own you with their magic. You signed your name, but your mind isn't owned by them. You are built to ascend. Even if you join their damn cults, your body's designed to ascend. They can't stop that. That's why they're killing us all. Because our bodies are beautiful and they're full of light. These are dark entities, spending a lot of money and time trying to make us hate ourselves too. We don't move. We don't get up. It's a movement, means to just get up, move your finger, do a ballet with your finger, for God's sake. You are a dancer. When you move your body, you're making electric kundalini energy. That's meditation, right? What is Tai Chi? Why are they moving so slow? Sorry, Karen, do you want to say something?
I just cleared my throat. But on that note, you tell us. Go on then, Jay. On the count.
Can we do the We Are the Dancers? I'm going to count on 3. And John, I would love if you would say with us that we are all dancers. Is that okay with you, sir?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
We are all
dancers. Yes.
Chemistry is not our strong point.
Yeah, anybody can do a wiggle. Angel, anybody can.
But check it out. They call it the electric slide. I never got that. Why is it called the electric slide? Because your brain's electric. You're sharing electricity with your body's heat. See that shit? It's like, it's everywhere.
Yeah, he's just sort of showing how much they've lied to us.
Yep.
How disconnected we are. And the same thing with the pyramids. I just don't understand why they've lied to us so much, but I suppose they'd have to change history, wouldn't they?
Well, it's basically to do with power, isn't it?
Yeah, they're trying to rule us. I don't think we're really free people, to be honest. I think we're under control.
Well, I think if you take the idea that we had this amazing civilization about pre-Egyptian, and then it was destroyed by a catastrophic flood, and somebody did actually store or control some of the information, I call them elites, basically to protect themselves and the surviving population, then they've moved through the last sort of 4, 5, 6, 10,000 years in control of the information. So they kind of know ahead of what's going on. They know what's going to happen. And they probably knew with the information they had back 10,000 years ago from I'm suggesting from an ET civilization, that they knew about electricity. They knew about all these things that we talked about 10, 11,000 years ago, and that's all come through the generation. Each generation, as I said before, we're all very clever, and each generation is actually able to download some of this knowledge from our unconscious memory through this transgenerational memory gene, if you like, and a lot of it comes through the process of genius, which is really to do with some of us, and you look at them all, Einstein and Mozart and so on, they all were autistic, or they had some kind of problem through the pregnancy, as it were, the embryo problem. Embryo didn't develop properly, and we have these amazing people. And today, California is full of, and I came across them myself when I was at Intel, full of these people who are autistic. And they're almost a different species to us in terms of when they write software, they can look at whole rows of zeros and ones, millions of them, and they can pick out where there's mistakes, and they can move things around. They're just completely amazing people. But these people have existed. Say Mozart, he's able to play the piano from a very early stage and write this amazing music. But today, they're really coming into their own because they have this different type of brain. and able to access information and knowledge and stuff that that through this process of genius that they've moved us forward even quicker than in the last sort of 20, 30 years than we moved for maybe 100 years. But it all stems from a knowledge that we've inherited from, I believe, from extraterrestrial manipulation of Homo sapien away about 10, 12,000 years ago. And that's why it's nothing to do with Darwin. It's just, it happened, and we've just, there's no missing link. I think that we just have evolved differently. We've become more upright, and we've developed as we've moved very quickly, and we've progressed. Our physical changes, and as someone said earlier, we were probably much taller. We maybe lived a lot longer, and this probably next generation will say they're going to live until they're 100, but I think not. I think the younger generations coming along won't live as long as this current generation. That's just my speculation. But certainly in the future, they will be able to genetically engineer embryos to clear out certain cells that are dangerous or can be corrupted, or what's not the right word, corrupted, but can be turned into cancerous cells in later life, and so that may well change the development of the human being as we move forward. And then this other side becomes more complicated as we become cleverer. We're now, if you look at Moore's law, where we're doubling the size, the number of transistors on a silicon chip, which we've been doing for the last since the 70s. We run out of the possibility with a silicon chip, but they're now talking about combining silicon with a biological material. And once you start moving away from a piece of silicon, which is, how you like, lifeless, to a biological component, then you're starting to get a really, really scary and frightening, intelligent microprocessor. And that's looking into the future, and that's something that's being developed. So we're almost creating, or in a position at some stage in the future to produce a human being. And even more scarily, you can see the Planet of the Apes. We could start manipulating a chimpanzee or some other creature, as probably happened back in the day, as they did with Homo sapiens, to have an intelligent chimpanzee. And that may be already happening, I don't know. It's all kind of speculation and and scary stuff, but it's intriguing that the person who wrote the Planet of the Apes, if we had an intelligent chimpanzee or an intelligent ape, and there was another catastrophe, a meteorite strike or whatever, then they would be more likely to survive than us, because they just would. Anyway, enough of me rambling on. Pass that back.
Yeah, you're our guest.
To you. A lot of this, by the way, is in my book. I don't want to keep plugging a book or so on, but I'll only mention that because it's easy to get access to, not to buy the book, obviously, but there are places you can read sections of it and get information from it. But it's becoming clear, if you like, that something really unusual must have happened to us back in the day, in the prehistory, because we're so different. We're so different, and we obviously, after the flood and the devastation, we kind of got confused. I think there was a lot of harmony at this time of the this alien first civilization. There's a lot of harmony and control, etc. And people like the Buddha and Confucius and all these people, they all talk about harmony and trying to get it back into harmony. But of course, with the destruction, we lost the leadership, we lost the control, and we descended just into a bit of archaic situation, which we've continued with. And until we're sort of having these discussions, we're going to realize what has happened, then we can maybe pull it back and get back to a world of harmony again, because we have to, for the planet to survive. It's horrendous. The greed of the establishment. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and mean, if I'm walking down the street, Karen, I see you, and I see you coming towards me, and I realise, oh, I owe you some money, and I want to avoid you. Now, I can avoid you, duck, hide somewhere, avoid, or I can evade you. Now, what's the difference between avoiding and evasion? What's the tax avoidance, tax evasion? There's no difference. It's just that the Rach have created this term, which means that it's a legal term, which means they can't be, the taxes can't be taken from them, their money can't be taken from them. It's just absolute nonsense. So that has to change, and it's got to change. It will change. It has to change because they got too greedy. The establishment have become so greedy that people can't buy things, and buying things that's how capitalism survives. Is majority of people buying things. I remember sitting with Andy Grove, who's one of the leaders, one of the guys who set up Intel, and no, it's actually Gordon Moore, sorry, at dinner, and I sat with him. And he must have been worth, I don't know what he's worth, probably billions of dollars. And I just thought, well, you can only wear one pair of shoes at a time. You can only sleep in one bed. So why do you need all this money? And I don't understand why this greed that we have is just obscene, really, and it has to change. I don't know what your opinions are on that. It's getting a little bit late now in the evening, but for such a
I think Intel's better company was going to be More Noise. That was their original name, because More and Noise were the two guys.
Sorry?
They're the two guys that started it were Mr. Morley and
those three. Noise, Moore, and Grove. Those three.
Okay, and the other one was Noise, and originally the business name was going to be More Noise.
Right. Yeah, he's dead now. Noise is dead. Grove's still alive, and Moore's still alive, but they both retired now. They're no longer at Intel. So.
Can I ask you, John, what do you hope now to happen with the pyramid and your book and patients before? What is it you'd like now them to wake up or tell the truth?
Well, it's to try and find out how humanity began, really, and how it's been distorted and how it's been manipulated by a few for their own power and ego and all these kind of things, and basically for us to be able to recognize that and to try and find out how we can sort of, as someone mentioned earlier, you can't stop what you think. They can stop you what you say. This is this thing we're talking about, political correctness and all this things that's going on at the moment, and some of it is fair enough, and some of it is just completely ridiculous. But they can't stop they can't stop what you think. And I think as long as we all realize this, we can think and we can talk in groups and we can try and get to a point where we have to change things, because the planet can't survive. The population has to be controlled, and we have to control capitalism, really. This idea of just people continually, and someone did say technology can make things worse as we start getting into the era, and I'll get against another complicated subject of robotics and robots and things. Then what are we going to do with the human population? So somehow that has to reduce. And I know in countries like Britain, and I think parts that there are reductions in the population from the indigenous population. There's less children. I think this next couple of years there's a big dip in the number of 18-year-olds going into university. But then immigration is bringing in loads more people, and it's so where the population you'd expect it under normal circumstances to decrease, it is actually dramatically increasing, and of course, the implications for all. This is where David Attenborough comes in now with his plea for obviously the other creatures on the planet, the snakes and the monkeys and everything else. It's quite scary to think that most of the surviving leopards or lions are actually pets in houses in the States or Europe or whatever, and in the wild, the way we're going, we won't exist, and they all count. They all have a knock-on effect for the benefit of everybody, including obviously ourselves. And so, without nature, as again we mentioned earlier, without just the natural movement of things, then we start to go down in this downward spiral, which is not going to be good for the human population in years to come. And maybe that's going to be the cycle. Something will happen that will mean there'll be a dramatic change, which I obviously don't want to see. Just really trying to stop anything dramatic happening, anything revolutionary happening. It's just a kind of trying to get things to move across using common sense and harmony, and trying to cut out ego and greed and the classic things that seem to motivate people. Some people.
I want to send you a hug for that, because that's just about right. That is what you just said. Yeah. Can I just ask you a question? Why were you at the pyramid if they didn't want to take any notice of what you said?
Sorry?
Why did they ask you to go and be in this pyramid, inside it, about 10 years ago, wherever it was, if they didn't listen to you?
Well, I think just at that time I was just doing a lot of research, really. It was my own personal research. I was a kind of independent researcher, as there are many now. There's lots of us around now. There weren't maybe a few years ago, but there must be thousands, if not tens of thousands, of people like me now that are not just researching ideas and pyramids and so on, but just searching, really, without the shackles of being constrained, or you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't look here. And I think, again, something mentioned earlier, which is a really great thing, is the progress women are now making, because I think that is just so important, because they bring a sort of softer dimension, much gentler dimension to society, and we need that big time. We need to get more women involved, and I think without them being manipulated, with them realizing, just performing with their own natural instincts and their own their own ideas and their own views, and not be saying, oh, I'm in a man's world, but make it more balanced, really. Not even balanced, well, balanced being 50-50. My view would be even greater in favour of women.
Oh, he gets another hug as well. Oh, what a nice person you are, John.
My humble experience.
Yeah. Obviously, we don't know you that well, if you know what I mean.
You guys go. I don't know what time it is with you guys in the States, and well, I know where you are in Germany, and
we can listen. Sometimes these hangouts go on for hours, and in England, we don't go to bed till really late. But I mean, you have kind of been, okay, we didn't start the hangouts till a bit late, but it is getting on for 12 o'clock. Is it time that you want to go, John?
Well, I'm heading off to the golf course tomorrow morning.
Cool.
Because obviously we'll probably stay on for another little bit, but
keep hitting some dodecahedrons.
Oh, yeah.
We're just very appreciative of you coming on to talk. Wrote some nice things in the chat room about you, because obviously, there's such a lack of people, these things. So we very much appreciate your wisdom.
Well, it's
as well.
It's trying to get rid of labels, of where elites give you labels, the establishment give you labels. They call themselves professors and prime ministers and CEOs and so on, and then anybody they disagree with, or crackpot, or a witch, or something that in the past, which immediately brings in the project discredit. And this is another thing that's very big at the moment. You find, obviously, Project Fear, Project, but these different projects that they're bringing in, and the latest one is this Project Discredit, and it's quite incredible how they're their I mean, the American gentleman there, how he feels about how they're trying to discredit Donald Trump big time. The establishment have really been going after him since before he became president, and it's quite intriguing how he is actually turning things around, or appears to be turning things around, making America great again, and so on. And I think this is something we as a country recognised when we voted for Brexit. I think we realised we need to change the way we're going. This kind of establishment just doing things to suit themselves and build them up, and of course they've got a big shock. And of course, even ever since they keep bringing it. Oh, we're going to have another referendum. We're going to have this and that and so on. They're really still trying very hard to fight against this Brexit thing, which we voted for. The people voted for. The people voted for Donald Trump, and what I see, he's managing to weather the establishment storm, and beginning to get some credit, I think, for what's beginning to happen. But as I said, I don't know enough about American politics, and I've got to stick my nose into areas that I not necessarily know a great deal about. But just from what I can see on the face of it, obviously the media moguls are all establishment. They've been having the knife in for Donald Trump for ages, and we don't have anybody politically strong enough in our country to follow through Brexit. I don't think Theresa May, although I had a great admiration for her at one time, I certainly lost that kind of respect for her, because I think she just seems to be indecisive and not what we need, somebody to take us forward. And I think we have a great opportunity to work with Donald Trump in America. I mean, he's opened his arms to us in Britain. I want to trade with you. I want to do a lot of work with you, and so on. And we're still in the media, of course, in BBC, criticising him at every opportunity we get. I think, well, for goodness sake, he's the guy who can help us develop and make Britain great again, if they work together as he would like to see. Obviously, it's in his interest to do well with Britain, and it would be a win-win situation. But again, I've digressed quite a bit from pyramids, and I hope I haven't gone on too much about politics into it too much, because it's not really what we want to talk about. And
no, that's fine. You talk. That's fine by us.
While we are a family, we're not family here,
Yeah.
so we're allowed to talk about politics and religion.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll.
Yeah, and you're part of the family now, even if you only come on occasion.
I'll let you get on and discuss.
Family now.
Pardon?
I said, even if you don't come on the Hangouts, like we come on every night, these people on the panel come on regularly. Even if you only come on occasionally, you've got a new family now, John.
Well, I'd just like to, I'd like to share my thoughts, but obviously, as important, if not more important, find out what other people are thinking, share their thoughts, because that's the critical thing to me. Everything I write about and talk about and so on, I need to get it's the feedback is the key thing. And if somebody says to me, I read your article and I thought it was a load of rubbish, then as long as they can explain why they thought it was rubbish, then that's fine. Then I will pick up on that. But what I like anything in my, just one last thing to say, I have had absolutely no criticism. Nobody's ever come up regarding my book and said that is just absolute rubbish, and or make some. And that's amazing. That book was published in 2000, and in that 18 years, there hasn't been. There's been lots of comments or information. Nobody's actually said that's just nonsense. That can't be. There's no way that can happen. So that's been encouraging.
I've had people tell me left and right that, like, oh, there's no way that would work. I'm like, okay, you tell me what's well, at least on my views on things. I'm like, okay, well, you tell me where you think I made a mistake, and I'll look it up and I'll address it. And no one can ever really come up with an answer, because they've just been force-fed the tomb dogma, and since what I'm saying is outside of the tomb dogma, of course I must be wrong. Just like if I was to turn around and say, like, look, they had electricity for thousands of years. I can show you electroplating all throughout history. I can show you batteries all throughout history. But it wasn't up until just recently that the average person even knew what electricity was. To try to explain to somebody what electricity is like trying to explain to somebody what magnetism is without a magnet in hand. I mean, if I have a magnet, I can, get a paper clip and show you all sorts of fun things I can do. But without a magnet in hand, it's really hard to demonstrate what a magnet is. And nowadays that people know what electricity is, you can show people and say, look, this is a battery. You use one every day. So you're not talking about hocus pocus stuff. And I do believe that electricity has been knowledge throughout the eons, just like you were saying about how there's the elite that have their secret things, has been the knowledge of electricity, but they've only been using it in macro ways, like electroplating of coins and maybe colloidal silver here and there, things of that nature. We didn't really have the ability to make it in abundance until we started, with generators and coils and, the current day of electricity. Even now, we make nature do what we want it to do. Instead of allowing nature to do what it does and utilizing nature, we force nature. And it's, we don't pay attention to what nature can do and using the micro amounts of electricity. You could drag your feet across a rug and walk up to somebody and tap them on the shoulder and give them a shock. But that's a tiny bit of electricity, and it's not really sustainable. But if you could do that all day long forever, then it kind of is sustainable. And if you did that thousands of times and touched somebody with a quarter, and poof, before you know it, after a week of doing that, you'll just electroplated a coin. Hey, but that's not something you could really demonstrate to somebody right away, and it's easy to hide. And I think that electricity has been around forever, and it's science. It is repeatable, an experiment that can be proven. And it's not like electricity didn't exist 1,000 years ago. I mean, somebody could have still walked across a rug, and somebody still could have tapped somebody on the shoulder, and they still could have given them a shock. But we didn't have a way to pool that energy. We didn't have capacitors. We didn't have batteries. At least the average person didn't. But I do suggest that they have. I will suggest that they have existed all throughout history, just only by the few and far between and elite.
Yeah. I think what's intriguing is we had this massive knowledge back in the day, back 10, 12,000 years ago, huge amount of knowledge on the planet. And then obviously the catastrophic event happened, and then we lost a lot of the people who understood the knowledge. So the knowledge wasn't lost. It was still within the brains of the offspring or the survivors. But obviously there was a lot of knowledge still stored, I argue, in maybe the pyramids or somewhere it was stored. But it's irrelevant really, because the fact is we know that we've invented things through the centuries, and the person who maybe has invented it has died or whatever. And so the invention has disappeared, has disappeared. But then it springs up again, because we've all got this knowledge. So even we found that, you get an example like the invention of the television. One person was involved in it, but then someone in Britain, and then someone in the States were also at the same time had the similar ideas. And it's just that the exciting thing about today is we can share them, obviously, especially in the field of medicine and cancer cures and so on. We can share this information because of the computer technology and so on. But I just think that a lot of ideas have come and gone, but those can still come back again, because we've still got that information. It's just been invented. And then that, as you say, that person maybe back in the Middle Ages had invented something that was seen as witchcraft, and therefore the person was probably killed or something because it didn't agree with the church or the Lord of the Manor or whatever. But then that's never lost. That's the other thing, interesting thing I feel is that this amazing knowledge which we've been brought to the planet will never be lost. It will, because it's always in all our unconscious minds. It's just we've got it stored in different packages, because obviously we have evolved differently. But we're pretty well all just got this amazing information, and we can all invent things. We're all capable of inventing things. Just depends on how creative we want to be, and what environment and what opportunities we've had. We've been given the opportunity to go to university to study, you say electronic engineering, you mentioned electricity and so on, and you could be the next inventor of some amazing new power source or whatever. It's just, but it's exciting, and I think we live in exciting times, and as long as we can enjoy ourselves as well. Anyway, I'll let you get on with it. Enjoy the rest of your hangout, and thank you, Karen, for inviting me, and hope I haven't gone on too long.
Oh no, it's been an absolute pleasure.
And
I hope in the future that you will come back and come on, and at any time if you want to or give us any more information, come on and share it with us.
Yeah, love to. And as I say, if you do get a chance to read any of the stuff I've got, because that kind of opens up other possibilities for conversation, because sometimes you, if it's a one-way thing, I like to, if I can, get involved with people who have like-minded, if you like, have read some of my stuff, or I've read their, vice versa, I've read their book or their articles and so on, and it's nice to meet up with people and like that you can kind of, oh, say I read this, and that was really exciting, or this is really intriguing, this is really interesting, and so on. But anyway, and likewise, if kind of anybody who has articles or information, I'd love to find out what they've published as well.
Cool. Just, I don't want you to say where you actually live, but do you actually live near Silbury Hill? Do you live in the area then?
I used to live in a place called Marlborough, but I now live in a place called Bradford-on-Avon, which is near Bath.
Oh, right, because I used to live in Hungerford, work in Marlborough, just the other side of Newbury and Thatcham.
Right. Yeah. Know where you are. Yeah. Quite well. Well, I lived in. I worked for Swindon. I was actually more on the marketing, engineering side at Intel, but their headquarters were in Swindon, and I lived in Marlborough. But I was since obviously retired, and I moved to Bradford-on-Avon, so I live in Bradford-on-Avon.
Where you are.
Which is where I am now.
Anyway, you want to go, don't you? Because it's got to midnight, and I think you're beginning to look a little bit tired now, as you've been on this hangout for 3 hours.
My God!
But
once we sorted the problems, anyway, everyone, gentlemen, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
It was great.
Thank you. Bye now.
Oh, someone in the chat room, ADR says, hello, Karen. Thanks for bringing John on the show. Wanted to hear what you had to say.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye, darling. Bye. 3 hours, but for us, that's still quite a short hangout. Is there anything you lot would like to talk about? Is there anything you'd like to say, Angel? Artist?
I could go on for hours, but nothing super special, or that I haven't already said before. It was good to talk to him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's a very nice man, isn't he? And with that, I mean, he's gone now, but he was a slightly older generation, and he was involved in this, so that was nice to see.
He needed boss.
I saw he kept slipping back into the globe theories a bit.
Yeah.
He is a flat earther, but I think he doesn't mean to say planet like that.
Well, he was talking about Mars.
Hang out. He said he's a flat earther.
Right. But when you're talking about Mars, you can't kind of...
Yeah, but he's only looked into pyramids, I think. He's not maybe looked at this whole thing. You know, maybe he doesn't, realize that everything's a lie. And I mean, in a way, he sort of feels there was some, because obviously, I don't know anyway. So you do sort of believe in aliens, don't you? And he feels that some other people built them. I went to see my son today, and he was going aliens. And I was going, there's no such thing as aliens. And he said, hang on, Mum. Alien means, and people, like another, what do you call it, generation of people from the past. Doesn't necessarily mean they came from space. Just a generation of people that have gone. Yeah, he was trying to tell me that, but hey. But I don't think
if we can constantly keep redefining terms, then no one can ever be consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I did ask him on the last hangout because I'd never talked to him about being a flat earther. Just I wanted him to come on and talk about the pyramid.
Right.
And then when about 5-10 minutes into that hangout, it became apparent to say, "Oh, we're a flat earth group." And he said, "That's okay. I'm a flat earther."
I do, right. I listened to that one.
It's just, like,
What do I
I
say?
realise that it's not.
Karen, maybe this is a good topic for the after hangout.
Yeah, we could do that.
Cool. Yeah.
Otherwise,
Anyway.
we just,
And in circles.
well, not really, but it's more an after talk, hangout type of.
I think he's right.
Well, on that note, then, should we end the hangout? Because we have been on for 3 hours, and I've got to go to work tomorrow. And it's been a really nice evening.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's give hugs.
Big flat earth hugs to everybody. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for everybody that came on the panel. Jay, do you want to end it?
Yes, I say thank you to all the people in the chat room. You matter. Your ears matter. I appreciate your compassion, open-mindedness. The support that I'm seeing is awesome. And that's really awesome because that's what I think we need more of in the world is just people that are there for each other. Like we actually get it done and we meet and we do these things. We meet new people and we're never battling each other or trying to debunk someone or be more truthier than them. It's just really balanced. And I'm humbled and honored by everyone involved in this because we're the ones that are going to make a difference. I mean, it really is where we're at. No one's making a difference. They're making the same. We are actually doing it. And we should applaud all of ourselves. Even just by listening to this network, that's doing something.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just saying thank you.
I thought you were going to end it on 1, 2, 3.
I thought you wanted me to say some, some like third eye shit. Okay.
Oh, no, you did. That was brilliant. But I was expecting a 1, 2, 3.
I'll count us out. All right, I got you. Slow. 1, 2, 3. We are all dancers.
Dancers.
Everybody, tomorrow night is ladies' night. So see you tomorrow.
Ladies' night and the vibe is right. Go with